Chapter 179. Beast Master School was famous in 9 regions for controlling spirit beasts. Almost every cultivator in the school had one or even several spirit beasts, but the method of controlling them varied from person to person. Qin Dongji, who used the spirit dog as a tool, still belonged to a relatively low level. When it came to the level of the sturdy elder, his cultivation base had reached the king pill level, and his method of controlling spirit beasts would also change accordingly. First of all, with the improvement of the master's cultivation base, the level of the controlled spirit beast would usually also rise. After all, the master had already reached the king pill level, so the controlled spirit beast's Niden could not be condensed, otherwise it would be useless. Once the level of the spirit beast rose, its wisdom would usually also increase, becoming more human-like and clever. At this point, if the spirit beast continued to be used as a tool, although it was not impossible according to the contract, the instinctive resistance of the spirit beast would greatly weaken the effect. Therefore, usually with the improvement of the spirit beast's level, the master's status would also correspondingly increase. For example, the gorilla in front of Qin Dongji was his master's brother. Even within the Beast Master School, he was officially a cultivator. Except for not being able to hold a high-level management position in the school, the other privileges were almost the same as a human cultivator. The various ideas advocated by Beast Master School might be extreme, and there were many voices of opposition and even ridicule in the 9 regions. However, the sect has been working hard to implement the ideas they propagated, which was why they were recognized and respected by the Union of 10,000 Immortals. The master of Qin Dongji, and Qin Dongji was one of the cultivators in the school who advocated equality between humans and beasts. Of course, this equality between humans and beasts was only limited to immortal cultivators. Mortals, of course, were not counted as humans. He and his natal spirit pet called each other brother, treating each other with sincerity. Now that he was summoned by his senior brother, he had no time to get away, so he handed over the task of capturing the 2 people of Yu family to Silverback. And since this huge gorilla could win today's status, its strength naturally could not be underestimated. In terms of the grade of monsters, it was at least a level 4 or 5 monster. Its Niden had long been formed, and it also cultivated the superior cultivation method bestowed by the Beast Master School, so its comprehensive strength could be compared to a high-level Shudan cultivator. Moreover, this spirit beast was born with great strength. Although it didn't have many magical abilities once it got close, even a peak Shudan stage cultivator would have a big headache. Of course, if he encountered a cultivator who was good at fighting, he would naturally have many ways to toy with this gorilla that only had brute force. However, this time, his opponents were only 2 little cultivators who were at most in the Foundation establishment realm. What kind of tricks could they play? Therefore, to Qin Dongji and Yu Yang, even though their master had some matters to attend to and was unable to come out, when they saw their martial uncle Silverback coming out, their hearts felt at ease. They thought to themselves that the Yu clan's 2 reckless fools were going to be in big trouble. On the other side, Wang Lu and Lu Li restarted the Cloud Wave boat and unhurriedly flew toward the eastern direction of the Moral Enlightenment City. In the Flying Boat Immortals Cave, Wang Lu set up a barbecue rack with great interest and roasted a wild boar for Lu Li. The little girl beamed with joy and even sang a song. The song was sweet and pleasant, without a lack of childlike interest, but also had an ethereal and clear taste, making people feel as if they were floating in the clouds, feeling refreshed. After the meal, Wang Lu tidied up the remaining skeleton, which he threw to the captive Xiao Bai to gnaw on, while thinking about the next step of the plan. While he was thinking, he suddenly heard Lu Li ask, Senior brother, we seem to be going in the wrong direction. Isn't the Grand Cloud Mountain north of the Moral Enlightenment City? We're going to the east. Wang Lu nodded his head. Not bad, we actually found the north. But you're still stupid. Who said we're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain? Lu Li's eyes widened. Her mind was in a mess. Senior brother, didn't you say you're going to the Grand Cloud Mountain to deliver the letter? How? That's the general direction. But at this stage the Grand Cloud Mountain is so big, can you find Zen Master Go Ruo? Moreover, we've just fought with the Beast Master School, so do you want to run to their headquarters and take the initiative to ask for permission? Right now, regarding Zen Master Go Ruo, the Wanxian League and the Beast Master School are unreliable, so naturally we should look for the original owner of this place, the White Dragon Temple. I don't really understand. Lu Li frankly said, but as long as I listen to you, senior brother, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. This is a Siscon, right? Yes, you're worth teaching, Wang Lu said. His eyes couldn't help but wander around Lu Li's plump chest. This chest is indeed worth giving. No, this is simply becoming a perverted Siscon. I'd better think about how I'm going to open my mouth when I meet the good-for-nothings of the White Dragon Temple. However, before Wang Lu could reopen his train of thought, he saw Little White, who was gnawing the bone, suddenly shivered. Then it revealed a fearful look and barked. Its eyes were eager, as if it was warning something. Wang Lu smiled. He didn't let Bien translate it. Because Little White's action was enough for him to make a judgment. The long-awaited Beastmaster School pursuers have arrived. Descend. Without needing to look, without even needing to confirm the other party's position, Wang Lu launched a spell to descend the Cloud Wave boat. Although he wasn't afraid of the Beastmaster School pursuers in case he accidentally damaged this deluxe version of the Cloud Wave boat, it would be too late for regrets. When the Cloud Wave boat landed, Wang Lu, Lu Li and Quan Zhuhua walked out of the flying boat. Before long, a black shadow, like a meteorite, penetrated the ground from the sky. Bam! A giant beast with a height of more than 3 meters, clad in 100 battle armor and holding a waist-thick silver stick, fiercely examined the opponent in front of it. Its pair of spirit beast eyes quickly saw that the opponent's cultivation base was middle-level foundation establishment. It then let out a beast-like roar and questioned. Are you the ones who injured my Beastmaster School people? Hand over the spirit dog and I'll let you go. Wang Lu burst into laughter. He simply didn't care about the deterrence of the giant beast. Lu Li even clapped her hands and laughed. What a cute monkey. That silverback gorilla froze for a moment, and then suddenly felt a burst of anger. Thereupon, it coldly snorted and slammed the weapon in its hand on the ground. The earth quaked, and a vigorous and violent energy was transmitted from the ground, ready to explode under Wang Lu's feet. Once this power erupted, it would immediately shatter the jade mansions of those 2 middle-level foundation establishment cultivators and shake their primordial spirit. However, Wang Lu took a step forward and firmly stepped on it, just in time to intercept the shock force of the silverback's attack. That Shudan-level attack was stepped on by this foot, trembled for a moment and then collapsed. Unexpectedly, it didn't play any role at all. While the silverback was still in shock, the opponent's counterattack came. Xian Er, take it down. Lu Li very obediently called out her usual flying swords. 2 flaming red swords were held in her hands. The next moment, the girl swiftly thrusted forward, and in a flash she appeared in front of the silverback and slashed the 2 swords together. Such a quick surprise attack surprised the silverback. Fortunately, its cultivation base was profound. At the critical moment, it raised its weapon horizontally in front of the 2 swords, trying to block the opponent's attack and then waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. However, the next moment, the blazing heat from the swords as well as the invincible sharp sword intent, broke its defense with a loud bang, which made every hair on the silverback's body stand up in pain. The innate great strength of the spirit beast allowed it to barely withstand the impact of the opponent's slash. However, after this blow, its 2 thick arms had faintly trembled, and the lingering pain continued to stimulate its primordial spirit, making it extremely painful. As far as its eyes could see, there were 2 deep black slash marks on its beloved weapon. The magical weapon, which was refined from hundreds of kinds of metal refined from underground gold, was almost broken by the opponent's blow. And this was just to resist the opponent's attack. The silverback simply couldn't imagine how a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator could have such a powerful attack that it, a spirit beast comparable to high-level Shudan, couldn't withstand it. However, before it could exclaim in surprise, an even more shocking thing happened before its eyes. After the first round of slash, the girl unexpectedly turned around and slashed again, and the power was several times stronger than the first strike. In an instant, the silverback judged that it absolutely could not block the second strike. The opponent's absolute power was not as good as its own, but this sword strike contained a special power that was far beyond its brute force. Although the silverback couldn't recognize the brilliant sword heart, it was, after all, a battle-hardened spirit beast of the Beastmaster School. Thus, it immediately made the right choice. It thrust its blade forward, ignoring the fire sword that was about to reach its body, and assumed a posture of mutual destruction. The silverback was, after all, a powerful spirit beast that had cultivated for more than 100 years. The timing, direction, and strength of this stab were all just right. Even if it couldn't resist Lu Li's sword, it could at least take her down with it before it died. Even if Lu Li's brilliant sword heart had thousands of variations, in the face of a Shudan stage cultivator's mutual destruction, she had no choice but to retreat. However, Lu Li didn't have the intention to retreat. With her delicate body, she faced the magical weapon of the silverback. The 2 swords in her hands set off a raging flame, and then she directly chopped it down. because she knew that the counterattack of the Silverback would naturally be blocked by someone else. In the past 5 years when she fought side by side with Wang Lu, she never needed to worry about defense. This time of course was no exception. Sure enough, a familiar sword shadow appeared right in front of her. Wang Lu stepped on Lu Li's flying sword, and the sword of Mount Kuan in his hand was as fast as lightning. Although it was launched later, it arrived first and hit the stick in the hand of the Silverback, completely blocking the counterattack force of the Silverback and then feeding it back. On the other side, Lu Li's fiery sword also chopped down, simultaneously receiving Lu Li's brilliant sword heart and its own full-strength counterattack. The Silverback gorilla was seriously injured and vomited blood on the spot. Were it not for the 100 battle armor on its body that offset more than half of the damage, plus its innate tenacity, this blow would have been enough to kill it. However, even so, it had lost the power to fight again. It could only clench the stick with its huge palm, using its fierceness that was imprinted in its bones to barely support itself from falling down. Its pair of red pupils contained unyielding and anger. In the face of this heroic scene, Wang Lu did not resonate with it at all. He just looked at the opponent playfully and then with a sword strike he cut off its fingers that were holding the stick. The Silverback screamed and fell to the ground. Its voice was incomparably miserable. However, Wang Lu just put his foot on its head and forcefully stomped it into the ground. Continue to pretend. You're obviously a beast that wants to rob me, yet you still want to pretend to be a vulnerable group? Since you don't want this face, I'll bury it for you. Chapter 180. Gorillas had never been strong and resilient creatures. Compared to those natural predators such as jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards, even if it had a strong physique, its sensitivity and fear of pain and death often made it unable to display its full ability in actual combat. Silverback was a gorilla that had turned into a spirit. Although its cultivation was successful, it still inherited the defects of its biological instincts. Its cultivation was not weak, but its courage, cultivation, and character were not commensurate. It was very afraid of death. And the reason why its master favored it was because it was smarter than other spirit beasts, so it could stand on its own without the need for too much force. And Silverback's reaction was indeed worthy of its master's expectations. The moment it was defeated, it guessed that the 2 young cultivators before it were likely to be the genius disciples of some big sect. It was impossible for the cultivator clans of Celestial Water Lake to cultivate such powerful foundation establishment cultivators. These 2 people must have borrowed the identity of Celestial Water Lake clan to go out to gain experience, so Silverback immediately put on a mighty and unyielding martyr image. For those young cultivators who lacked experience and still had unrealistic fantasies about the mortal world, this martyr image was the easiest to win sympathy and the easiest to escape. Although Silverback was a spirit beast, it had gradually become familiar with human nature. Unfortunately, the opponent it encountered this time was obviously not so easy to deceive. Regarding Silverback's method of seeking life in the face of death, Wang Lu's response was to cut off its fingers with his sword and then forcefully step on its head. These 2 simple actions scattered all the thoughts in Silverback's mind, replacing them with only a thick fear that could not be resolved. Then Wang Lu's indifferent voice came into its ears. From now on I ask you answer. If you can't answer you die. If you play tricks you still die. Silverback nodded again and again, not daring to hesitate in the slightest, let alone talk about any conditions. It could see that compared with its own road robbery, the opponent was obviously more ruthless, more lawless, and that ice-cold killing intent was not the least bit fake. If it was a little careless, the opponent would absolutely dare to kill it. First of all, let's start with something simple. Name, gender, age, position. Silverback, male, orangutan, 136 years old. Wang Lu coldly asked. Okay, next question. I heard that the Beast Master School is collecting rare spirit dogs near the Grand Cloud Mountain. What's the reason? Silverback was startled. He didn't expect that the other party would ask this question instead of anything else. This was the sect's secret, and if it was really leaked out from its mouth then... However, just as Silverback hesitated for a moment, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan was startled and unceremoniously stabbed into Silverback's thick arm. Amidst the beast's miserable howl, blood gushed out like a fountain. You can take your time to think about the wording, but the longer you think, the more blood will flow. Wang Lu's tone was indifferent as he sheathed his sword, but the tip of the sword was pointed at the back of Silverback's neck. Silverback trembled as he opened his mouth to speak, but then he heard Lu Li suddenly frowned and questioned Wang Lu. Senior brother, I remember it's written in the sect's rules that we can't oppress weak creatures. Silverback felt as if it had heard the sound of nature. Even though the heavy injuries on its body were mostly caused by this girl, it still couldn't help but want to praise her 32 times. Well said, how could a righteous disciple abuse the weak? Even if you want to kill it, you can't abuse it. However, in the face of Lu Li's serious questioning, Wang Lu didn't explain too much. Although this result was basically the Beastmaster School's own fault, intercepting them in broad daylight, brazenly trying to snatch the spirit dog, and even made the first move. Moreover, when making the first move, they didn't hesitate to injure or even kill people. For this kind of bandit behavior, using violence to curb violence was already considered very cheap. However, with Lu Li's cognitive ability, why did it need to be so complicated? Wang Lu just smiled. I'm not abusing it but cooking. Cooking? Lu Li's beautiful eyes widened. Once again she felt that her brain capacity was a bit insufficient. Wang Lu said with a smile, orangutan sashimi, have you ever eaten it? Lu Li awkwardly frowned. Later on we'll take the monkey's brain. Right now these are the necessary steps of cooking, absolutely not abusing it. So you can rest assured and wait to eat it. Lu Li's willowy eyebrows stretched out, and then she said with a grin, I know senior brother is the best, you would never violate the sect's rules. Silverback was simply dumbfounded, thinking, no, this is absolutely not right. How can this kind of nonsense explanation pass the test? Which sect's rules are so undignified? Unfortunately, before he could think too much, the sword of Mount Kuan had already pierced his body. The intense pain robbed Silverback's ability to think. As a spirit beast that wasn't good at enduring pain, Silverback really couldn't bear it. Therefore he finally divulged the sect's secret. Because we are refining a spiritual treasure level beast collar, we need to use the spirit of 10,000 dogs. Relying solely on the spirit dogs of the division is far from enough. Therefore we need to collect all the spirit dogs in the vicinity of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Although the strength of the spirit dog around you is not strong, it's a very special breed, which is very valuable for refining spiritual treasure. Therefore no matter what, we have to get it. Wang Lu nodded and slightly withdrew the sword of Mount Kuan. Refining the beast collar requires the spirit of 10,000 dogs? Wang Lu pursed his lips, recalling what he had learned in the 10 Cloud Hall in the past 2 years. In his study plan, the path of tool refining would only be strengthened after he reached the Shudan stage, so he didn't study it too deeply. However, according to his basic common sense, what Silverback said should be true. The most important magic weapon of the Beastmaster School to tame spirit beasts was the beast collar. Once the spirit beast was hooked, its magical power and primordial spirit would be involuntarily controlled and could only be at the mercy of others. This was a magic weapon used by the Beastmaster School to deal with spirit beasts that were difficult to tame. However, the beast collar was certainly not omnipotent. The more magical and powerful the spirit beast was, the more difficult it was to tame it. For example, it was very difficult to use a magical tool-level beast collar on Silverback. However, this time, the Beastmaster School wanted to refine a spiritual treasure. In the end, what kind of spirit beast was worth using a spiritual treasure to trap? What's more, it was indicated that the beast collar had to be refined with the spirituality of a spirit dog. This kind of beast collar targeted at a special breed was far more effective than versatile. In conclusion, could it be that the Beastmaster School wanted to catch the howling celestial dog? When Wang Lu threw this question to Silverback, the gorilla cursed in his heart. He had deliberately avoided this question and only talked about the beast collar. But he didn't expect the other to immediately ask. However, if he continued, it would seriously harm the school's interests. Silverback hesitated for a long time, not daring to open his mouth. Who knew that Silverback's hesitation made Wang Lu's eyes light up? Oh, you're hesitating and don't dare to speak? It seems this is the core problem. Combining the existing conditions, I guess you found a rare spirit dog on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Perhaps its strength is not strong and its grade is not high, but it's especially good at hiding and escaping. Your division has many spiritual masters, but they can't do anything about it. Therefore you came up with the idea of refining the beast collar. You want to use the spiritual treasure level beast collar to suppress the dog-type spirit beasts within a radius of 100 miles, so as to limit its mobility. Under the horrified eyes of Silverback, Wang Lu continued to speculate, for your Beastmaster School to muster such a large force, not even hesitating to become a bandit. It's probably because you want to end this quickly and can't afford to delay. Why do you want to end the battle quickly? Are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Why are you worried that someone will obstruct you? Because that spirit dog is also of great value to other schools, so much so that they don't hesitate to oppose your Beastmaster School? So, if I'm not mistaken, it should be a super high-level young spirit beast? Or maybe it's an immortal beast. As the silverback gorilla's heart gradually turned cold, Wang Lu chuckled. Although my guess may not be accurate, I think whether it's the White Dragon Temple, Gentle Cloud Mountain, or even the dozens of immortal cultivation sects within the Grand Cloud Empire, they would all be very interested in my guess. A young immortal beast, even the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League won't be indifferent. So, why don't you take a guess? If I were to spread this news, what kind of miracle would happen? The next moment, a heavy voice burst from the sky. If you really want to do this, I guarantee you won't live past today. Hearing this voice, the silverback gorilla's face stiffened, and then it was uncontrollable ecstasy. At the same time, hiding in the distance, Chen Dongji and Li Yingying, who had witnessed the whole process with trepidation, could not help but cheer, "Master." It was the Beast Master School's King Pill Elder who sensed that Silverback was in danger through the Spirit Beast contract. "Let go of Silverback and surrender, and I'll spare your life." When he spoke, the Elder was still dozens of miles away, but his voice had already passed over first, and it was wrapped in the pure magical power of Taoist Master King Pill. As the sound waves rolled, the vibrating force directly penetrated into the opponent's Jade Mansion, trying to shake the primordial spirit. The fire-thunder incantation of Elder from a high-rank sect, King Pill, could hurt people even dozens of miles away. Regarding Taoist Master King Pill's preemptive strike, Wang Lu just casually brandished the sword of Mount Kuan. The invisible non-phase sword Qi drew out his sword defense, encircling Lu Li and the mottled dog. That sound wave disintegrated at the edge of the sword defense. Wang Lu propped up his defense, carefully savoring the countershock force from the sword tip. He had already judged that the opponent was a genuine Taoist Master King Pill. Although it was only a low-rank King Pill, and the quality of King Pill was not too good for the 2 foundation establishment stage like them, it was still a terrifying opponent. At this time, Silverback, who was stepped on the ground, lowered its head, hiding the ominous glint in its eyes. Wang Lu was indeed formidable to be able to block the fire-thunder incantation. However, as soon as its master came closer with the Beast Master School's secret method, it could instantly break free. Man and beast fusion would increase its master's strength, which would then be able to easily take down these 2 foundation establishment stage insects. As for Wang Lu, he was still not in a hurry. After offsetting the fire-thunder incantation, he pointed the sword of Mount Kuan toward the direction of the sound. "Is that the Joker invited by the monkey?" At the same time, his left hand made a gesture toward Lu Li. The girl's face showed a trace of surprise, but her hand's movement was as fast as lightning. The fiery sword flew out of her hand and went straight down from the top of Silverback's head, immediately taking its life. However, that gorilla's strange smile was still hanging on its face. "How dare you? You're courting death." Immediately followed by Elder King Pill's thunderous fury, which soared to the sky and dyed the entire sky with the color of the setting sun. Wang Lu inwardly sneered, "Do you think I'm a fool? Who doesn't know that the cultivators of Beast Master School have the strongest fighting power when they join hands with the beast? If I don't take advantage of the time when you're separated to deal with one side first, then when you're together we'll fall into a bitter fight. Therefore I'll break your arm first and then you can play with your bird alone, you fool." Chapter 181. When the news of Silverback's death came from the primordial spirit contract, the corresponding punishment was also fed back to its master. In an instant, Elder Chi Ho felt as if he was in a sea of fire. His primordial spirit violently trembled as if it was about to melt on the spot. This was the punishment of the contract. When he enjoyed the convenience of the spirit pet as the master, he also had to bear the responsibility of guarding the spirit pet. A moment of carelessness caused him to lose his right-hand man. The resentment of Silverback's death was fed back through the contract, making him feel so much pain that he wished he was dead. As if it was only a trivial moment, but also as if it had been a long time, Chiho's whole body trembled as he passed through the punishment of the contract. In addition to the pain, there was also ferociousness on his face. Those 2 bastards must die. Moreover, they must die in the most painful and cruel way. After death, their bones would be ground into ashes, their primordial spirit would be extracted and put into the furnace to suffer eternal suffering. They dared to kill Silverback. No matter how big their background was, they couldn't stop his revenge. Elder Chi-Ho clenched his teeth. His anger had long been boiling. However, on the other hand, under the flame refinement, his fire element heart was exceptionally calm, so that he didn't lose his mind. Instead, he was more clear-headed in analyzing the situation. This time, it was indeed their side that made a mistake. At first, they only thought that they were elite disciples trained by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Therefore, they didn't care about Silverback, who was not particularly good at fighting. Who knew that this mistake in judgment would actually send Silverback's life? It was just that, seeing Wang Lu's sword defense to resist the Fire Thunder incantation, as well as Lu Li's unstoppable flying sword, she knew that these two people were definitely not people that could be cultivated by the Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. It was very likely that they were the successor disciples of the first-rank sections. The so-called Yu family of Celestial Water Lake. Either this family had some dogshit luck, and their disciples were taken in by the big sects, or this signboard was simply a cover, and these two people were just used to hide their identity. In a place like Cloud Region, the title of genius disciple of a big sect brought convenience, but it was also accompanied by considerable risk. Because everyone knew that genius disciples were priceless. Not only because of the sect treasures they carried on their bodies, but also because of these genius disciples' top-grade spirit roots, it was enough to turn them into walking human-shaped nourishing pills. Many evil cultivators loved to pluck these genius disciples to nourish themselves. Since he recognized that the opponent's background was not ordinary, Chiho put away the contempt in his heart. At the same time, he also knew that this battle could not be rushed. A disciple of such a large sect would definitely have a life-saving item given to him by the sect. It would either be something like the escape talisman that could allow him to escape quickly, or something like the golden bell shield that could set up an absolute defense, or he would simply have an essence soul avatar of the sect's elders following him. However, no matter which one it was a trump card that he would not use unless it was absolutely necessary. Once he used it, he might be able to successfully overcome the current crisis, but his trip down the mountain could be considered to have come to an end. What Chiho wanted to do was to make the opponent have no time to bring out these cards. As for the method, it was best to use the tactic of boiling a frog in warm water. Drag the opponent into a protracted battle and deliberately reveal flaws to make them think that victory was in their grasp. Then, thinking of this, Chiho slightly converged his own magical power. Although his strength had declined greatly after losing Silverback, the King Pill realm was still there. How hard could it be to deal with two Foundation establishment cultivators? After all, he didn't personally witness the defeat of Silverback. Thus, he only calculated that if he didn't restrain himself a bit, perhaps in 3 to 5 moves, he would be able to force the opponent into a desperate situation. Then two dazzling fiery red sword lights completely interrupted his thinking. Chiho was extremely surprised to see Lu Li rapidly approaching him. It was hard to believe that a mere Foundation establishment girl actually dared to so arrogantly take the initiative to attack, and even more difficult to believe that a mere Foundation establishment girl could actually wield such a sharp sword intent. The sword tip has yet to arrive, but that unstoppable brilliant sword intent has already directly penetrated Chiho's magical power protection and touched his primordial spirit. Even though Chiho's cultivation base was far superior to the opponent's, and his primordial spirit strength, he still felt an unbearable pain in an instant. Chiho immediately resorted to a beast skull that was covered with blood-colored war tattoos. The eyes of the skull bloomed with brilliant light, which shone on Chiho's naked upper body. A ferocious aura came from this ancient beast skull and poured into Chiho's body along the war tattoos. Immediately, his bones elongated, his muscles swelled, and he turned into a half-man, half-beast monster that roared and pounced. Oh, is this the beast transformation of Beastmaster School? Xian'er, go all out. Seeing this change, Wang Lu sent out a command with his eyes. Without hesitation, Lu Li released the 10 flying swords that were hidden in her sleeves and gathered them around the 2 swords. Her attack power rose to another level. Her pair of eyes that were filled with innocence also became as indifferent as ice, and her brilliant sword heart began to operate at full force. As for Wang Lu himself, one of his hands wrapped around Lu Li's slender waist, while the other hand held his sword. The thick and heavy sword body was wrapped in sword momentum, like an indestructible shield. A moment later, a collision occurred. Lu Li's full strength thrust the 2 swords against Chiho's chest. His bronze skin, soaked in sweat, blossomed with a metallic brilliance. With a sharp piercing sound, the 2 fiery swords drew a string of sparks on his chest, leaving behind 2 scorch marks. However, they couldn't really break the skin and hurt the muscle. The defensive power of Taoist Master King Pill was beyond doubt. Lu Li's ever-successful brilliant sword heart couldn't even penetrate the outermost defense of his body, and the sword intent that was aimed at his primordial spirit was also neutralized by his boiling fighting intent. At the same time, Lu Li felt that the world turned dark, and a terrifying shadow fell from the sky. It was the giant beast skull that was enlarged thousands of times. 2 rows of sharp teeth were on her head, which then fiercely bit down. However, Luli didn't even look at the approaching death. With a flick of her wrist, she let go of the fiery sword and then grabbed the 7th metal sword from the side. She then turned around and stabbed again. Her movement was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. However, the power of the 2 swords was comparable to the first burst of thunder, inconceivably fast. With 2 loud noises, Luli's 7th metal sword fiercely hit the opponent, and the 2 rows of sharp teeth of the giant beast's skull also fiercely closed. Finally, a drop of blood oozed out from Chiho's chest. However, the giant beast's skull that he used to counterattack was firmly opened by 2 powerful arms. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't close it. Wang Lu tried his best to open up a space for Luli. Although it wasn't big, it was enough for the girl to turn her waist, borrow the momentum, and then replace the 2 lightning-flashing flying swords. When she attacked again, her power had gone up another notch. Chiho's countenance finally changed. Luli's continuous sword strikes had no interval for her to catch her breath. Each sword strike was more powerful than the previous one, and it seemed to be endless. Although his stage was higher than her by a stage and a half, if he continued like this, perhaps he would only be able to receive 2 sword strikes at most before his foundation would be injured. Originally, he intended to use the method of boiling the frog in warm water to numb the opponent bit by bit, and then wait for the opportunity to strike, so that the opponent would have no room for resistance. However, who would have thought that after 2 or 3 moves, there was actually a faint sign of defeat? On the other side, perhaps the ancient beast's skull had lost its power from tens of thousands of years ago, but its bite force was enough to cut gold and break jade. How could a small foundation establishment stage cultivator withstand it with her body alone? However, as long as Wang Lu's 2 hands supported him, the 7 feet space was unbreakable. After the 3rd collision, blood spilled from the corner of Wang Lu's mouth. However, Luli's wind and thunder sword also made Chiho's face show a trace of unnatural redness. Senior brother, the 8th level of King Pill -5, I only need 3 more sword strikes to defeat the opponent. When she turned around for the 3rd time, Luli's clear and cold eyes revealed her instinctive judgment. Wang Lu nodded, took a deep breath, and suppressed the unceasingly shaking Jade Mansion. Sure enough, Chiho wasn't in his best condition. Instructing Luli to kill Silverback with 1 sword strike was indeed the right decision. Not only did it cut off Chiho's opportunity to merge with his beast, it also destroyed his beast taming contract, causing his strength to be greatly reduced by the backlash. Although he had the King Pill stage, he couldn't fully display his ability. Otherwise, even if his real ability was to merge with his beast, his fighting power would be greatly reduced. However, since he came from a 3rd-rank sect, his comprehensive strength shouldn't have fallen to the level of -5. Good kid, you've pushed me too far. How could Chiho, the dignified Taoist master of the King Pill stage, sit still and wait for death? The ominous glint in his eyes was even more flourishing as he roared, "White teeth, come out!" Wang Lu also roared, "Quanzhou Hua." Knowing that Chiho's card wasn't just the beast transformation, Wang Lu didn't let the stupid dog make its move. At this time, hearing Chiho's roar, he immediately pulled out his own card. The stupid dog roared, its nose slightly trembled, and then it rushed to a certain place. Even though his trump card was being countered, Chiho only had a cruel sneer on his face. The next moment, his body swelled up by 3 times, and a blood-red battle pattern appeared on his cheeks. His aura doubled in strength. It was as if there was a steady stream of power pouring into his body. Damn immortal mode? As the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Lu could see through Chiho's means at a glance. This King Pill Elder's quality was really not something that the inferior King Pill Elder could compare to. In addition to Silverback, he also had other spirit pets, it was just that he didn't bring them with him. During the fight, that spirit pet would hide in the distance. Once it was called, it would immediately use the secret technique of Beastmaster School to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and transform it into pure magical power, which would then be transferred to Chiho, allowing his power to surge. In Wang Lu's view, wasn't this method of inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy exactly the immortal mode? Luli didn't need to test the strength of the opponent in immortal mode. Wang Lu could already guess it. He immediately reached out and patted Luli's shoulder and then roared, "Withdraw." When the girl turned around for the 4th time upon hearing this, she suddenly paused and her movements slowed down. Seeing this, Chiho wildly laughed. "Wanna run?" Too late. Nobody knew when, but the skull of the ancient ferocious beast had been enlarged thousands of times, forming a huge cage that covered the sky, trapping the 3 of them inside. With this skull as a restraint, Chi-Ho wasn't afraid that the opponent could escape. Even if Lu Li used her full strength to slash it, without 3 to 5 strikes she wouldn't be able to break the skull. Not to mention, how could Chi-Ho let the opponent break the skull? However, the next moment, in Chi-Ho's astonished eyes, Lu Li suddenly accelerated after turning around for the 4th time. The 2 blazing swords in her hands thrust straight at him, carrying an unprecedentedly strong sword intent that was unstoppable. Damn it, I've been tricked. Just as he thought of this, the fiery sword has already heavily stabbed Chi-Ho's throat. The magical power of the fire element on the sword and the incomparably sharp sword intent poured out from the tip of the sword. The power of this sword strike had firmly reached the level of King Pill. However, after this sword strike, Chi-Ho was forced to retreat several steps. His complexion changed and his throat was scorched black. However, very soon new granulation squirmed out from the wound, showing that Chi-Ho didn't suffer too serious of an injury. In immortal mode, Chi-Ho's defensive ability was far from what it used to be. No matter how strong Lu Li's brilliant sword heart was, she couldn't get rid of the restriction of high-level foundation establishment. She couldn't even condense her Shudan, thus, in the face of the Taoist master of King Pill, she was somewhat powerless. Chi-Ho coughed out several mouthfuls of blood. Looking inside, his jade mansion has been damaged in several corners. Inwardly, he was inwardly shocked, thinking, I wonder how many high-level foundation establishment cultivators with such powerful attack power can be found in the 9 regions? The other party most likely concealed their cultivation base, otherwise, it would be impossible for them to be this sharp. However, this was the end of it. If the opponent wanted to win, they must first unlock their own immortal mode, causing their strengthened attack and defense to fall again. And if they wanted to unlock their immortal mode, they must defeat their own spirit pet, White Teeth. The spirit dog sent by Wang Lu might have an excellent bloodline, but its current strength was not strong, far from being the opponent of White Teeth. At this time, White Teeth might have already captured Wang Lu's modeled dog. As long as he defeated the opponent in front of him, he would be able to declare his victory in this fight. And the immortal mode Taoist master of King Pill, facing 2 middle-level and high-level foundation establishment cultivators, had an overwhelming advantage. At this time, looking at Wang Lu and Lu Li, Chi-Ho seemed to be sizing up his spoils of war. Especially Lu Li, which made people involuntarily look at her. However, at this time, a mournful dog bark suddenly came from afar. The sound was full of fear and panic. Chi-Ho's complexion changed as he recognized that it was the voice of White Teeth. What the hell? What is the origin of that modeled dog that even White Teeth couldn't take it down? It must be known that White Teeth was stronger than Silverback. If not because he didn't like dogs, his spirit pet should have been White Teeth. The next moment, a burst of complacent laughter came from the air. Chi-Ho's complexion turned even uglier, because the answer has been revealed. Haha, what a fat and lean big black dog. Tonight, I'm going to eat to my heart's content. Zen Master Guru, you son of a bitch. Just as his anger rose, Chi-Ho spurted out a mouthful of blood. White Teeth was already dead. Chapter 182. Go all out. Almost at the same time when Chi-Ho vomited blood, Wang Lu made his judgment. Lu Li took a deep breath. Ignoring the fact that her magical power had been depleted due to her continuous outburst just now, she just strictly followed Wang Lu's instruction. She raised her last bit of strength, turned around and swung her sword. Then the girl saw Chi-Ho's eyes that were full of humiliation and unwillingness. The dignified Taoist master of the King Pill was actually forced to the point of no return. Chi-Ho clenched his teeth and activated a talisman on his body. Escape talisman. Before the fight, Chi-Ho was still calculating how to intercept the opponent if she used something similar to the escape talisman. However, unexpectedly, after a fierce fight, the one who used the escape talisman turned out to be himself. The dignified King Pill had to flee in defeat in front of 2 foundation establishment cultivators. This humiliation would probably be difficult to wash off in his lifetime. However, no matter how humiliating it was, living was better than dying. After losing 2 spirit pets in succession, Chi-Ho's strength had fallen to the lowest point. Since he mastered the King Pill, he had never been this weak. The omnipotent King Pill in the middle of his jade mansion was dim, and vaguely, there was even a tendency to disintegrate. That was a sign that his cultivation base was greatly damaged, a sign that he would fall back to shoot on stage. In this case, there was no need to consider what kind of recuperation he would have to go through to recover. Lu Li's final blow alone was something that he absolutely couldn't withstand. Therefore, he decisively activated the escape talisman. However, the next moment, in Chi-Ho's shocked and angry eyes, he saw Lu Li's 2 swords turned into a group of shadows, which seemed real and illusory at the same time. However, it actually chopped an inch in front of Chi-Ho, cutting off an invisible connection. That was the connection line between Chi-Ho and the ancient vicious beast skull. Lu Li's sword could cut through all things. Unexpectedly, while the opposite party was unprepared, her sword actually cut off the connection between Chi-Ho and the skull. The interruption of this connection was originally not a problem. As the owner, Chi-Ho only needed a breath's time to re-establish the connection. However, now Chi-Ho didn't even have a breath's time to activate the escape talisman. His huge figure, in a split second, turned into a ray of light, flew to the sky, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared on the horizon. As soon as Chi-Ho left, the huge skull lost its source of magical power. It suddenly shrank back to its original position and fell to the ground with a rumbling sound. Wang Lu conveniently picked up the skull. This was the first valuable loot since he went down the mountain for experiential learning. Although the grade was not high, just a high-rank magical treasure, its commemorative value was different. This was the loot from the fierce fight between Wang Lu and Lu Li, who were still in Foundation establishment stage, against Taoist Master King Pil. However, Wang Lu didn't have the time to carefully play with it. He pulled Lu Li and went in the direction of the stupid dog. Although he didn't witness the incident just now, he could guess that there must be a kind-hearted passerby who pulled out a sword to help and directly beheaded White Teeth. Only then did Chi-Ho leave with hatred in his heart. Now the first thing he needed to do was to meet that kind-hearted passerby. Previously, that person shouted that he wanted to stew the big black dog for dinner. Obviously he had a soft spot for dog meat. And although Hua, that stupid dog, was stupid and small in size, its meat quality. Passing through several clumps of woods, Wang Lu saw a kind-hearted passerby next to a stream. Unexpectedly, the one who caught his eye was a young woman who looked about 25 or 26 years old. She was tall and had picturesque facial features. She wore a luxurious purple dress, which gave her a somewhat noble and otherworldly temperament. However, her smile seemed a lot more approachable. Her body's magical power fluctuation was completely restrained, making it impossible to see the depth of her cultivation base. Unexpectedly, the chivalrous person who saw injustice was actually a woman. Wang Lu was slightly startled. Especially when he saw that the woman was single-handedly carrying a rather large black dog, sizing it up and down with a smile on her face. This sense of incongruity became even heavier. However, thinking of the other party's help just now, Wang Lu still followed the etiquette rules learned in the Tingyun Hall and solemnly saluted. "I am Yu Lu of the Celestial Water Lake. This is my junior sister Yu Xian. Thank you for your help just now." The woman smiled and waved her hand. "Don't mention it. I mainly wanted to solve the problem of dinner. Moreover, even without my help, your spirit pet wouldn't have lost." As she spoke, she had already taken out a knife and cut open the belly of the black spirit dog, White Teeth. Then she began to cook it on the spot with the stream water. Her movements were skillful and swift. The quality of this black dog is really not bad. It is fate that we met. If you don't mind, why don't you taste my cooking later? I might not dare to say anything else, but in terms of cooking dog meat, there are not many people in the entire Yunzhou who can compare to me. This woman was frank, generous, and hospitable. Wang Lu looked at her for a long time, but he didn't find any trace of falsehood on her face. He couldn't help but smile. "Then I will be indebted to your hospitality." "Good, you are straightforward enough." I found that there are a lot of people in this Yuntai mountain who, as soon as they hear that they can eat dog meat, can't wait to cut people into pieces. Really, it's not like they are eating the meat of their parents, it's really interesting. Wang Lu said, "It's just a joke, why do you care?" As he spoke, he looked around looking for his modeled dog. He thought to himself, "This stupid dog has stupid luck. It shouldn't have been smothered by the swordswoman, right? Looking for your dog? It is hiding over there and doesn't dare to see me. Just now it was about to swallow this rare big black dog. In order to avoid wasting God's gift, I scared it. Oh, don't worry, no matter how greedy I am, it's impossible for me to cook and eat the descendant of Fenrir." Wang Lu was shocked. This woman knows Fenrir? The woman raised her head and smiled. "I have eaten a lot of dog meat, so I have done some research on similar animals. However, to be able to raise Fenrir as a pet, you and the little sister over there shouldn't be from Tianshui Lake, right?" After his lie was exposed, Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. "In Jianghu it's important to be low-key. Very well, let me introduce myself again. I am Wang Lu, and this is Lu Li from Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. Oh, I am Xiao Qi, you can just call me Qinyang." Halfway through her words, the woman stood up in surprise. "You are disciples of Lingjian school?" Then it's really fate. Do you know a guy named Wang Wu? We old friends, haven't seen each other for many years. This time it was Wang Lu's turn to be surprised. It was not unusual for a Lingjian school cultivator to have friends outside, but that bitch Wang Wu actually had friends. This was too inconceivable. Besides making enemies, what else could she do? Thinking of this, Wang Lu's thoughts turned again. Could it be? Although this speculation was absurd according to common sense, thinking that she was his master's friend, Wang Lu felt a bit relieved. Excuse me, do you know Zen Master Go Ruo? Xiaoqi blinked. Zen Master Go Ruo? That's me. Wang Lu sighed. Looking at the fresh dog meat in the woman's hand that had already been cut into pieces, he guessed that the so-called Zen Master Go Ruo was probably Zen Master Guru. However, why did such a beautiful woman have the title of Zen Master? Qinyang, are you a Zen cultivator? Xiaoqi tilted her head and thought for a moment. I don't think so. You have a profound Zen method and you're familiar with Zen scriptures? Xiaoqi waved her hand. Who's interested in that stuff? Wang Lu sighed. She was indeed a person who had drunk wine and meat for a long time. Then why do you call yourself Zen Master? Xiaoqi blinked. Because I'm really gluttonous. It turned out to be a gluttonous master. You're simply a scammer, okay? Xiaoqi indifferently said, but to say it, I do have some relationship with Zen, so some people like to call me Zen Master Guru. For the time being, I'll admit it. With that, she looked at Wang Lu. Are you Wang Wu's disciple? Wang Lu thought that since the other party was his master's friend, it was not surprising for her to see his origin. The magical power fluctuation of non-phase method was very special. Although the version that Wang Lu and Wang Wu practiced was different, it was still the same. Exactly. Wang Lu replied. That's good. Last time when we parted, she borrowed 200,000 spirit stones from me. You're her disciple, shouldn't you pay for your master's debt? Wang Lu did not hesitate. No way. Xiaoqi was silent for a moment. Don't you want to show your filial piety to your master? Looking at your cultivation base, Wang Wu should have spent a lot of effort on you in the past few years, so you ought to repay her. Or is it that you have inherited the glorious but poor tradition of non-phase peak that you are powerless? Wang Lu earnestly replied, money I do have it. Although I don't dare to say that I'm rich, there's no pressure to pay for her debt. However, it's for her sake that this debt can't be paid. Xiaoqi was so angry that he wanted to laugh. You non-phase peak master and disciple are really carved from the same mold. Why don't you tell me why you can't pay it back? Because once this starts, there will be no end to it. I believe that master's debt should be a habit. Creditors are everywhere in the world. If they heard that I'm willing to pay for her debt, I'm afraid they will immediately flock to me. Xiaoqi laughed. Are you afraid that you can't pay it back? I'm afraid that after I pay it back, master would think that a pie fell from the sky and turn around to borrow money. Right now she has a bad debt, and her credit value has long fallen below the bottom line. I believe no one would be willing to lend her money. However, if the debt is paid off and her credit rating returns to normal, I think it's not difficult to imagine what she would do. That's a bottomless pit. Xiaoqi was suddenly silent. Very well, I admit that what you said is reasonable. Later on, when I have time, I will find her face to face to collect the debt. In order to further distract her, Wang Lu changed the topic. This is the letter that master asked me to bring to you. Seven took the letter and casually opened it. Her eyes lit up and she finished reading it. A smile appeared on her delicate face. Wang Lu didn't need to guess to know that his master certainly didn't write anything good in the letter. Your master said that the model dog you brought is a strange beast from the western continent, Fenrir. If I can deceive that Fenrir and sell it, we can split the profit 50-50. It's not unusual to sell this kind of quasi-immortal beast for millions of spirit stones. Introducing this great opportunity to me is her paying off her debt. Then Xiaoqi somewhat dispiritedly threw away the letter. If I knew this, I wouldn't have read the letter in front of you. Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then said, when you go to Spirit Sword Mountain to collect the debt, if you need to drug or sneak attack, I can fully support you. After you succeed, contact the brothel or human traffickers, I can also do it for you. Aha, you're indeed a pair of master and disciple. Xiaoqi looked at Wang Lu with approval. Speaking of which, I have something to ask of you. Chapter 183. There's something I want to ask of you. Over at the Grand Cloud Mountain, the Beast Master School bastards have built a branch. It looks very unsightly. Help me think of a way to eradicate it. While speaking, Xiaoqi's expression became incomparably indifferent. Although he had already anticipated that this gluttonous master dog meat would inevitably be at odds with the Beastmaster school who advocated equality between humans and beasts, Wang Lu did not expect the contradiction between the two to be this sharp. Senior Xiaoqi looked delicate and handsome, with a kind and amiable temperament, but the moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to exterminate the entire branch. Sure enough, a woman's heart is the most poisonous. Hey, I only want to exterminate the branch, I didn't say I want to exterminate their entire clan. Don't act too fiercely. Wang Lu shrugged his shoulders. Do you mind telling me how Senior became enemies with them? Xiaoqi hesitated for a moment, then softly said, in fact it's not a big deal. The Beastmaster School collected several thousand spirit dogs on the Grand Cloud Mountain to refine beast collars. Then when I passed by, I ate more than half of those spirit dogs, so we became enemies. Several of their elders unceasingly chased me, and after several fights, the enmity grew bigger and bigger. Wang Lu could not help but sigh. You really King deserve it. Liking to eat dog meat was one thing, this was a personal hobby, a personal freedom. Unscrupulously eating dog meat in the Beastmaster School's territory was already a public slap in the face, quite impolite. But considering that eating meat was the norm around the Grand Cloud Mountain, and it was the Beastmaster School who forcefully reversed the public opinion, it was fine. But this guy actually directly ate the spirit dogs that other people had painstakingly collected. What was the difference between this and directly coming to someone's house to defile their wife? The Beastmaster School was not a good person, how could they tolerate it? It would be strange if they did not become enemies. At this time, looking at this hearty and good-natured senior, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. To be able to become good friends with his master, there was no way his personality was not twisted. As for helping to flatten the branch? To be honest, on this trip to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu was indeed planning to earn some reputation points from the Beastmaster School, but he didn't want to earn his sin points as well. After all, the Beastmaster School was still a righteous sect. In the past, during the Great War of Immortals and Devils, they had made great contributions. Although many of the school's ideas were extreme and undesirable, and the quality of the disciples was also mixed. For example, Elder Chiho, who tried to extort the Quanzhou, strictly speaking, had already committed an evil act. But you can hate them and secretly set some obstacles, but in the end you can't brazenly go to their front door. Seeing the frown on Wang Lu's face, Xiaoqi only smiled. How about this, you come with me and see the situation of the Beast Taming School's division. If you don't want to help, I won't force you. When Wang Lu heard this, he frowned even tighter. Qinyang meant that there was something hidden behind it? Fine, I'll let her experience it then. With Xiaoqi leading the way, the group of people flew in the direction of the Grand Cloud Mountain. As a good friend of Wang Wu, Xiaoqi dared to challenge an expert of the Beast Taming School's division by himself, so her magical power was naturally not bad. According to Wang Lu's estimation, she was at least at the level of King Pill. She alone carried 2 people and a dog, and her speed was not much slower than Wang Lu's Cloud Wave boat. When they were close to the Grand Cloud Mountain, Xiaoqi took the initiative to descend, and used a technique to cover up their bodies, smell and other traces. Then, using his primordial spirit, he said, "Follow me, don't make any noise." Xiaoqi's concealment technique was very powerful. The group of 3 people quickly walked through the mountain forest, and very soon they entered the boundary of the Beast Taming School's division, but they didn't trigger the Beast Taming School's early warning formation. The Grand Cloud Mountain had been operated by the Beast Taming School for about a year. Even though it couldn't be said to be filled with killing intent at every step, there were still a lot of mechanisms and formations. But Xiaoqi was very familiar with the road, so they walked as if they were walking on flat ground. Occasionally they would come across a patrolling Beast Taming School disciple, but their group would just stroll past them, and unexpectedly, the other party didn't notice anything unusual. It was reasonable to say that the Beast Taming School had many spirit beasts, and the 5 senses of spirit beasts were far stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. So, the interior of the division should be the most heavily guarded. But until Wang Lu and the others arrived at a call in the hinterland of the Grand Cloud Mountain, they were not discovered by anyone. And in the call, Wang Lu saw an astonishing scene. No less than several thousand spirit dogs were gathered in the call, and the small space seemed to be very crowded. These spirit dogs all had special collars tied around their necks. The Beast Taming School's collars were supposed to be magical tools to nourish the body and primordial spirit. But if one looked carefully, one could clearly see a subtle flow of life from the spirit dogs' bodies to the collars, and then it was gathered and transported by the formation in the call to a distant place. These collars were simply plundering the life energy. At this time in the call, most of the spirit dogs seemed to be dispirited and listless. Similarly, the nature of the heaven and earth spiritual energy in this place was also unpleasant. With Wang Lu's void spiritual root, he could clearly see a withered yellow color, as if the fire of life was about to be extinguished in despair. Among these several thousand spirit dogs, there was no lack of sick and injured ones, but the beast taming school did not give them any treatment, leaving them to fend for themselves. And even if it was a spirit dog with a strong physique, living in this kind of lifeless call, with its life force constantly being sucked away, was still a dead end, not to mention those sick and injured ones. Xiaoqi turned his head and asked, "How do you feel?" "I feel like I can understand your way of doing things." Xiaoqi said, "In order to catch young immortal beasts, the beast taming school gathered tens of thousands of spirit dogs to refine the spirit treasure beast taming collar. This is not a problem, but the refining process may cause certain harm to the spirit dogs, and this is also not a problem. However, this kind of bone-crushing, bone-sucking exploitation is really rare. This division elder's method of refining the beast taming collar is unconventional, refining the negative emotions of tens of thousands of spirit dogs. Therefore, he forced these tens of thousands of spirit dogs into a bad situation, constantly producing pain, despair and other emotions, and then extracted them with the collar and special array, turning them into spiritual treasure materials. Fortunately, it's the dogs that provide the materials, not people. Otherwise, based on this scene alone, the Wanxian League would not turn a blind eye, and the law enforcement team would have long come to kill them." Wang Lu slowly nodded, lost in thought. Luli couldn't stand it anymore. Her clear eyes sparkled with tears. Why are they so cruel? Don't the beast taming school love their spirit beasts?" Xiaoqi smiled. "The beast taming school people love their spirit beasts? That's a big joke. Carefully think about the name of their school. It's beast taming school, not beast loving school. If they really love their spirit beasts, how could they put them above their spirit beast? How could they put a collar on their spirit beast?" Luli still found it difficult to understand. "They preach in the moral enlightenment city too," Xiaoqi sneered and interrupted her. "Vegetarianism? What's even more ridiculous is that there are many kinds of spirit beasts, and quite a few of them are natural carnivores, unable to digest vegetarian food. When the beast taming school raised these spirit beasts, how do they feed them? Isn't it by slaughtering them to provide fresh meat? They just prohibit mortals from eating meat. In their eyes, mortals are even worse than animals. Not to mention most of the division elders are cats, and they're hostile to spirit dogs. In short, remember, among the tens of thousands of cultivators in the beast taming school, there's no lack of great cultivators who have a heart of universal love. However, in recent years this school has expanded too fast, and there are crooks and honest people mixed in the school. There's no lack of these bastards on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Otherwise, why do you think they can't stay in the southern heaven region and have to come to the cloud region to survive?" Luli was still puzzled. Obviously she couldn't understand. Therefore Wang Lu patted her head. "Remember these three conclusions. First, the beast taming school people are lying. Second, therefore these beast taming school people are not good people. Third, therefore when we kill them we don't need to have any guilt and hesitation." Luli thought for a moment and then nodded. I understand." The nearby Xiaoqi was surprised and asked, "This child?" Wang Lu stretched out his hand and circled around his head. Xiaoqi suddenly revealed a look of understanding, and then looked at Luli with a bit of sympathy. "In short, the situation is like what you see. The last time I passed by here what I saw was even more tragic than this." Wang Lu asked, "So you ate the dogs?" Xiaoqi indifferently shrugged. "What else can I do? Being put on the beast taming collar and having their primordial spirit refined by this life vitality gathering array is basically a dead end. Leaving behind an incomplete primordial spirit and a corporeal body, which will be squeezed by the beast taming school to produce negative emotions to refine the beast taming collar. I thought that since I'm going to die sooner or later, I might as well let them die in my stomach. That way I can reincarnate in the future." Wang Lu nodded to show his understanding. This Zen master guru was obviously not a dog lover. Killing these thousands of spirit dogs, freeing them, could be considered a good deed. As for how to deal with the corpses, obviously she wasn't kind enough to be willing to bury them. Thus, putting them in her stomach could be considered as passable. "I just pity those thousands of dogs that died in your stomach, how innocent they are." Xiaoqi angrily said, Hey, how do you teach your Lingjian school Chinese? Dying in your stomach and dying in your stomach are two different concepts. I'm sorry, but since the situation is like this, then I have no problem with it. This kind of heartless branch, indeed, the sooner they die, the sooner they'll be safe. For Wang Lu, since both sides had the same goal, and this senior Qingyang didn't have any intolerable flaws in her character, then both sides could cooperate happily. Good, I knew that the disciple that fellow Wang Wu accepted must also be a straightforward person. Wang Lu reserved his opinion on this. Having obtained Wang Lu's support, Xiao Qi was in a good mood. Turning his gaze, he saw the thousands of spirit dogs in the abyss of suffering and wiped his mouth. In order to celebrate our cooperation, why don't we have a good meal first? Then, just as he was about to break the array and plunder the corpses of those spirit dogs, Wang Lu was taken aback. Are you sure? Right here? So violent and direct? Facing Xiao Qi's complicated gaze, Wang Lu immediately explained, I mean, the last time Beastmaster School suffered such a big loss, it's impossible for them not to be vigilant and let you do it again. We sneaked all the way here. Although the process was smooth, it may be the result of the other side throwing a long line to catch a big fish. With that, in order to deepen his persuasiveness, Wang Lu also pulled Lu Li over. Xianer, I think we should withdraw now. Tell me about your intuition. Lu Li earnestly said, I agree with senior brother's point of view. If we continue, it may be dangerous. Xiao Qi's gaze became more complicated. Do you think a fool's judgment is convincing? I am not a fool. Lu Li softly but firmly protested, Master has taken me to do a test. Wang Lu snappily pressed her head. Shut up. Unfortunately, it was too late. In the end, Xiao Qi couldn't resist the temptation of good food. Ignoring Wang Lu and Lu Li's persuasion, he slightly opened his right hand and made a gesture with his 5 fingers. A mysterious spell quickly condensed, which drove the surrounding spiritual energy to change. However, at this time a sudden change occurred. The peaceful surrounding spiritual energy suddenly surged up. The surrounding mountains suddenly rose up, forming a natural cage trapping the several people inside. The surrounding mountain rock barrier blocked the sunlight, casting a heavy shadow. A sharp, slightly immature but no lack of hostility female voice echoed in the cage. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Sure enough, you guys came. Chapter 184. Xiao Qi tried to break the array and plunder the spirit dog. However, just as her spell was about to take shape, a strong change in the surrounding spiritual energy interrupted her spell. Xiao Qi frowned and withdrew her right hand. Then she heard a woman's voice reverberating in the valley. Zen Master Guru, you're really bold. You actually dare to come to my Grand Cloud Mountain. Don't you know this is a dead end? While speaking in the air, a slender figure appeared in their line of sight. That person was obviously the elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain division of the Beastmaster School. Through the teleportation array, he released an astonishing imposing manner as soon as he appeared. His enormous magical power was like a surging tide, surging and surging violently. It was like the tide contained a profound rhythm. With just this one move, he revealed his peak gold core stage cultivation level. Tisk, look at what you've done. You've provoked a question mark level old monster. Wang Lu helplessly sighed. His right hand has already reached into his mustard seed bag. Inside was a spirit sword heavenly talisman, which could, at the critical moment, ignore any imprisonment and directly send him back to the mountain. Its effect was simple, direct, and violent. In Wang Lu's view, it was as defying as the save point. It was his trump card as a professional adventurer. However, once he used this trump card, his professional adventurer's reputation would be smashed by half. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not consider it. However, in the face of a peak-level King Pill opponent, if he didn't use it, he would die. If not for the unfathomable Zen Master Guru by his side, he would have immediately activated the heavenly talisman and brought Lu Li back to the mountain to take refuge. He simply couldn't let a peak-level King Pill person make the first move. Humph, what's there to be afraid of? It's just a mere peak-level King Pill. Senior Xiao Qi curled her lips in disdain. Wang Lu finally made up his mind, thinking, sure enough, she's my master's friend, so her strength is very high. A mere peak-level King Pill is an insurmountable peak for a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator, but for a senior, it's just a novice village guard. Looking at the slender figure in the air again, Wang Lu couldn't help but exclaim, Catwoman? It turned out that the Beastmaster School elder who appeared to suppress the scene was actually a cat-eared girl. She seemed to be only 12 or 13 years old, even more immature than Lu Li. The 2 furry ears on her head were exceptionally quick-witted, and there were several strands of whiskers on her cheeks that constantly trembled along with the girl's mouth opening and closing when she spoke. There were also the sharp nails on both of her hands, all of which showed the inhuman characteristics. Most likely it really wasn't a human cultivator but a spirit cat. This kind of situation wasn't rare in the beast taming school. Once a spirit beast reached a certain level of cultivation, it could become a regular cultivator of the school and enjoy all the rights and privileges. However, it would be difficult for it to be promoted to the senior management level. However, the elders of the branch established in the Cloud State were not high-level managers. At the same time, looking at the cat-eared girl, Wang Lu also understood the hardships of the thousands of spirit hounds in the kernel. It was the law of heaven and earth that cats and dogs did not conform to each other. Letting a spirit cat serve as the elder of the branch, naturally, the spirit hounds around the Grand Cloud Mountain would have a hard time. If it were jackals, wolves, tigers, leopards and the like which needed a lot of fresh meat to maintain their nutrition, the creatures of the entire Grand Cloud Mountain would bear enormous pressure. However, the cat-eared girl who appeared in the air didn't expect that under the pressure of her King Pill's imposing manner, there would actually be someone who dared to be absent-minded. In her eyes, Zen Master Guru was already no different than a dead person, and then turned to Wang Lu and Lu Li. The few of you have been trapped by my beast taming school's 5 mountain broken veins great array. No matter how big your means are, don't even think about escaping. Zen Master Guru is a dead end, but my beast taming school is merciful. You two are accomplices. If you immediately surrender and hand over the spirit hounds, I can spare your lives. The cat-eared girl tried to make her imposing manner appear majestic and awe-inspiring. However, that sharp childish voice made her words seem somewhat ridiculous. Of course, under the peak-level magical power fluctuation of King Pill, only a few people could laugh out loud. However, as a professional adventurer, Wang Lu was most disgusted by this kind of unskilled threat. Inwardly, he was sick of it, so he retorted sarcastically, "Cat girl, if you change into a maid costume and serve us tea, we can spare your life. Otherwise, my martial uncle Zen Master Guru will definitely catch you and cook you as a side dish to go with the wine." Presumptuous. The cat-eared girl issued a sharp and ear-piercing roar. Her voice was like a tide, causing the sky to shake and the earth to shake. It was as if an invisible blade wind blew in the air, causing the surrounding rocks to rustle and the trees to fall one after another. And this was just the aftermath. The main power of the scream was concentrated on Xiaoqi. Although the one who provoked her was Wang Lu, how could she put a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator in her eyes? She had been cultivating for 300 years, transforming her spirit beast body into a human, using the secret method of beast taming school to wash away her demonic energy and turn it into a righteous magical power. Now, King Pill was at the peak level, Yuanying was just around the corner. Foundation establishment cultivators were like ants to her. Only the unfathomable Zen Master Guru was a bit of a threat to her. This scream was the full power of Taoist King Pill. Wang Lu, who was standing next to Xiaoqi, was only affected by the aftermath. He also felt that his non-phase sword defense was showing signs of collapse. His whole body's magical power surged along with the sound waves, somewhat out of control. Even his non-phase sword bone was shaken and cracked. Fortunately, the defensive and life-saving ability of non-phase method was really heaven-defying. His primordial spirit, which was condensed into an intangible body, was protected by both his physical body and magical power, so it was barely not injured and could still maintain the operation of non-phase method. As for Senior 7th Madam, who was in the main battlefield, humph. Accompanied by a cold humph, this finely dressed woman took 3 steps back and made a series of hand seals. Dozens of spells condensed and then broke in front of her, as if blooming gorgeous fireworks. Just as Wang Lu was curious about what kind of trick she was playing, he saw Senior 7th Madam's complexion finally changed, and then, she spurted out a big mouthful of blood. Was this the blood shadow divine skill, spraying blood to injure the enemy? However, looking at her pale face, it was obvious that her injury was not light. Wang Lu had to admit the tragic reality. Zen Master Guru, your King deceiving me? Just now you shamelessly boasted that a mere peak King Pill cultivator was nothing to worry about, but in the blink of an eye, you spat out geraniums and got seriously injured? Aren't you Master's good friend? How could you be a friend if your strength is so weak? Don't tell me you're the friend who usually hugs Wang Wu's thigh and yells, "Expert, let's be friends?" Then, facing Wang Lu's contemptuous, angry and surprised eyes, 7th Madam struggled to open her mouth to defend herself. A mere peak King Pill cultivator, if my real body was here, how could I let her be so arrogant? Unfortunately, I'm just an incarnation, so my skill is not enough. I don't care if you're the real body or the incarnation. If your skill is not enough, then just obediently kneel down. Don't pretend to be a master and trick your own people. However, seeing that the situation was getting worse, Wang Lu signaled Lu Li to come closer and reach out to hug him. At the same time, he walked slowly against the whistling sound and approached Xiao Qi's side, ready to launch the heavenly talisman to take her away from danger. It doesn't matter. I can't beat her, but if I want to run, she can't stop me. With that, a golden light shone from Xiao Qi's hand, and a thick and powerful Buddhist staff appeared in his hand. Xiao Qi slammed the Buddhist staff on the ground and shouted, "All living beings are equal." Suddenly the mountains were shaken. The mountain barrier that was forcibly pulled up by the 5 mountain broken veins technique was forcibly pressed down in front of this all living beings equal spell. The originally unbreakable cage suddenly disintegrated. The cat-eared girl was taken aback. She didn't expect that the impregnable array would be so easily destroyed. However, she soon realized the problem. It was the Buddhist staff in the hands of Zen Master Guru. The essence was restrained, the magical power was self-generated, and the power was agile, just like a living creature. This was a spiritual treasure, without a doubt, a middle-rank spiritual treasure. For ordinary sects, a low-rank spiritual treasure was enough to make king pill cultivators fight until their heads bled. As a high-rank sect, the beast-taming school situation was naturally much better. Generally, high-rank king pill cultivators mostly had spiritual treasures on them. However, this cat-eared girl was, after all, a spiritual beast in human form. She consumed too much energy when she transformed. She only had 2 life-bound magical treasures in her hands. She was still far from a spiritual treasure, let alone a middle-rank spiritual treasure. No wonder she was able to escape so easily after stealing the spiritual dog last time. It turned out that she had such a good treasure. The cat-eared girl's eyes became hot. 2 sharp teeth protruded from the corners of her lips, and her pupils contracted, revealing her hunter's instinct. Unfortunately, it was still a bit too late. As soon as Xiao Qi's Buddhist staff came out, the 5 mountain broken veins technique was broken. In the next moment she shouted, "Please open the door of convenience." Thus, a half-real, half-illusory door expanded from the tip of the Buddhist staff. Xiao Qi held the staff in his right hand, and his left hand pulled Wang Lu and took a step forward. Although it was just one step, it just crossed the door of convenience. The next moment they were already outside the Grand Cloud Mountain. After escaping from the predicament of the Grand Cloud Mountain, before Xiao Qi's feet landed on the ground, she looked back and saw Wang Lu holding the sword of Mount Kuan in one hand, Lu Li in the other, and a smart mottled dog hanging on his leg. This group of people really ran away. Thus Xiao Qi's heart calmed down. She directly lay down on the ground, gasping for breath. Just now, she had to take the cat-eared girl's scream, so her internal injury was not light. However, her cultivation method was quite mysterious, so she quickly calmed down the disordered magical power in her body. The Buddhist staff in her right hand also emitted a faint light, helping her to heal her injury. Hehe, what do you think? Thrilling and exciting, right? Your method of changing the topic to avoid embarrassment is really poor. Wang Lu mercilessly exposed her. Haha, just a moment ago you're still boasting shamelessly, arrogantly looking down on people, but the next moment, you've been seriously injured and have to flee in panic. You're a proper villain template. Xiao Qi's face turned red. Alas, a momentary slip, just a momentary slip. Even a wise man would make a mistake. Let alone if my real body was here, I could kill her with just a finger. Therefore, a momentary carelessness is excusable. The problem is your real body isn't here. What do you mean by your so-called avatar and real body? Is your real body referring to that Buddhist staff? It was rare for Wang Lu to take the initiative to change the topic, so Xiao Qi immediately explained, "Of course not, the so-called real body. Hey, didn't you teach it in Lingjian school? Among the several ways to advance from Yuanying to deity stage, one of them is to refine the avatar, divide the primordial spirit, and wait for the avatar to advance to Yuanying, and then combine the avatar into one, breaking through the barrier in one fell swoop." Wang Lu said, "I've taught it, but I really can't associate your appearance with a peak Yuanying stage expert." Chapter 185. There were several ways for a Yuanying cultivator to advance to the Huashan realm. The incarnation training method used by Xiao Qi was one of them. Of course, it was considered an unorthodox method. Although Wang Lu had learned about it, he couldn't think of anything. However, since your main body is a great expert at the peak of the nascent soul stage, as long as you call your main body over, wouldn't this Grand Cloud Mountain division be flattened in minutes? Xiao Qi said, "It's because it's not convenient to call the real body, so I need your help. Now, I'm in the midst of the soul formation tribulation. My main body is divided into many parts, and I'm in between existing and not existing. However, the main body of this tribulation has yet to appear, so... Wang Lu sighed. So to put it simply, you're a mid-level king pill weakling now? You, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, actually have the nerve to criticize me as weak? At least I won't provoke an opponent I can't afford to offend. Was I the one who pointed at his nose and scolded him? If you hadn't given me the wrong information, I would have run away long ago. Forget it, I'm not going to argue with an ignorant junior like you. Anyway, since we have the same goal, then, what should we do next? As Xiaoqi spoke, he looked at Wang Lu with an inquiring gaze. Wang Lu was flattered. Hey, do you, a senior master, need me to show you the way? Since you're Wang Wu's disciple, you're definitely more capable than me, so isn't it better for you to think of the troublesome things? Besides, I don't put on any airs, so you don't have to feel burdened. No, my burden is definitely not because of your arrogance. Now that things had developed to this point, Wang Lu could not trust this senior who was holding a Buddhist staff and had a look of anticipation on his face. However, having said that, no matter how unreliable he was, after all, a Taoist Master King Pill who had the vision of a peak Yuaning stage cultivator, and he also had a spiritual treasure in his hand. His real strength was much stronger than the combination of him and Lu Li. Just now, if she didn't have misgivings that the Grand Cloud Mountain was the Beast Master School's home ground, she would have directly wielded her Buddhist staff to fight with that cat-eared girl. Moreover, even though he encountered a small setback on the Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu didn't plan to stop here. On the contrary, after witnessing the scene in the call, the thought of flattening this branch became even more intense. In fact, even though the actions of the beast-taming school had already entered the path of evil, it was not considered unusual in the continent of the 9 prefectures. All of the famous righteous sects had more or less similar actions in private. For example, Shengjing sect was known as the leader of the Wanxian League, but didn't they have Taoist Master Jifeng in the Blue River region? In the Southern Heaven region, the actions of the Beast Master School were sometimes 100 times more intense than this. There were even some cultivators who, because mortals ate the forbidden meat, that is, the meat of their beloved spirit beasts, would kill them and even exterminate their entire clan. It was an out-and-out demonic path. But so what? The cultivator who killed them would simply apologize and go into seclusion for a few years. After that, the matter would be considered settled. No one would feel that there was a problem with that. Even the wisdom sect that was founded by Wang Lu, although it was now on the right track and appeared to be a lot more formal, but in the initial capital accumulation stage, using the burning blood technique to activate the skill was still an undeniable fact. This kind of thing was common in the immortal cultivation world, but conversely, because of this kind of thing, it was also normal. When Taoist Master Jifeng met Wang Wu, his years of painstaking effort were all for naught. Wang Lu's wisdom sect's luck was a bit better. At the beginning of its development, it didn't encounter any senior expert who came forward to meddle in its business. If it did, Wang Lu could only think of a way to deal with that senior. Now Wang Lu really wanted to meddle in this matter on the Grand Cloud Mountain. He wasn't a senior expert, but he didn't necessarily need to have the means of a senior expert to meddle in this matter. Speaking of which, the Beast Master School collects spirit dogs to refine spiritual treasures in order to catch the young immortal beast. What exactly is the origin of that immortal beast? Xiaoqi said, it's not clear. At present, no one knows. Even the Beast Master School can only judge its level, which is roughly equivalent to a peak Shudan stage cultivator, and can't distinguish its breed. However, most of the immortal beasts in this world are unique. Why, are you interested? Of course, isn't it obvious? Wang Lu smiled and then turned his head to point at the distant Grand Cloud Mountain. Beast Master School has been operating here for a year, changing the feng shui line, setting up the spirit pool and setting up the array. How much would it cost? Xiaoqi calculated. Not counting the manpower, about 1 or 2 million spirit stones should be enough. Yes, this Grand Cloud Mountain hasn't been operating for a long time, so the investment isn't much. Therefore, even if it's leveled, it's not a big deal. But how much is the value of a young immortal beast? Xiaoqi was startled, and then he said with a smile, then it's a priceless treasure. The stage of a real immortal beast was almost beyond the upper limit of the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, equivalent to a true immortal from the upper realm. For example, the current leader of the Wanxian League, Hichu Daoren, was 1 level higher. In the past, when a 9-tailed fox came to Spirit Sword Mountain, the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League had to use their trump card sealing method to barely suppress it. Thus, its high value was naturally not difficult to imagine. If it was a quasi-immortal beast like Fenrir, the value of a young immortal beast could at least be in the hundreds of millions of spirit stones, but a genuine immortal beast could not be measured by spirit stones. Of course, the classification of Fenrir was more or less based on the discrimination of the 9 regions against the Western continent. It didn't necessarily mean that Fenrir's strength was not up to the standard of an immortal beast. However, after all, there was no actual example, so it was not convincing enough. The reason why Wang Lu raised the issue of immortal beast was naturally to make a fuss about it. Right now, the Beast Master School of the Grand Cloud Mountain was trying their best to catch the young immortal beast. Perhaps the spirit dog was not up to the standard of an immortal beast, but since the Beast Master School attached so much importance to it, it was like a well-placed target, so it would be a waste not to hit it. So what should we do? Xiao Qi completely gave up thinking and just waited for Wang Lu's order. Wang Lu bluntly said, "There are 2 ways to do it. The first one is very simple. As long as the news of Beast Master School catching the young immortal beast is spread out, naturally, there will be a lot of trouble coming to our door. We just need to look on coldly from the sidelines, and then look for an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. It's easy and effortless." Xiao Qi clapped his hands. "Oh, that's a good idea. But there's also a problem. The gimmick of the young immortal beast is too loud, and the Beast Master School as a high-rank sect has strong strength and a solid reputation, so they are determined to get it. Once the matter is made public, several Yuanying and deity stage cultivators will fly over from the southern heaven region to suppress the scene. If we want to fish in troubled waters, it will actually be more difficult than now." "That makes sense. After all, it's the young immortal beast." Wang Lu said, "So the second method is to quietly make a move so that the waste wood of the Beast Master School division can't react in time, and then it will become an established fact. Then, not to mention anything else, at least my Lingjian School's reputation can be used." Xiao Qi asked, "An established fact? What do you mean?" "Because the Beast Master School hasn't caught the young immortal beast, so at present, it's still ownerless. In theory, it's first come, first served. Yunzhou is a chaotic place, and the Beast Master School hasn't established an unbreakable reputation on the Grand Cloud Mountain. At least, the Wanxian League hasn't withdrawn from this place, so the resources on this land, unless they get their hands on them, there's no such thing as an owner. Of course, this theory won't work on ordinary sections. The result of snatching food from the tiger's mouth will certainly be the Beast Master School coming to smash the place. But would they dare to come to the Lingjian School to find trouble?" Xiao Qi's eyes lit up. He was very appreciative. "I can't see that you've studied this set of rules very thoroughly." "Humph, this is the necessary quality of a professional adventurer." Wang Lu was also not polite at all. "So for the few of us, the operation is actually very simple. As long as we find the young immortal beast 1 step ahead of the Beast Master School, then I'll activate the heavenly talisman and return to the mountain to take refuge. No matter how big the grievances are, they can only cry, there's no place to reason." Xiao Qi became more and more excited. "Well said, but how are we going to find the young immortal beast? As far as I know, although it's not strong, it has a special ability that makes the professionals of the Beast Master School unable to do anything to it. That's why they have no choice but to seek help from the Spirit Treasure Animal Taming Collar. If it's so easy to find, the Beast Master School wouldn't have set up such an inhumane formation like the Life Energy Gathering Formation. Well, we'll have to depend on it." As Wang Lu said this, he used his foot to kick the stupid dog. "In any case, it's a quasi-immortal beast, it should have the ability to find a companion, right?" Xiao Qi was stunned. "Resonance? Yes, I've seen it in the books. The higher the level of the spirit beast, the easier it is for them to resonate with each other. For example, if an ancient treasure is born, the nearby spirit treasures may respond. Although this stupid dog is stupid, it's still a quasi-immortal beast, so it should have the ability to resonate, right?" Oh. Xiao Qi looked uncertainly at the stupid dog Yawu, who was scratching its head with its foot. "Are you sure this guy can?" "It doesn't matter. If we can't find it, we won't give it food. It definitely can." Woof. Feeling the impending crisis, the stupid dog became unprecedentedly nervous. Its pair of dog eyes were perfectly round, and its nose was twitching intensely, sniffing non-stop. This kind of pretense was just like a speech at a meeting. No one took it seriously. Even Xiao Qi, who was familiar with the habits of dogs, only laughed and said, "This animal is quite clever." However, the next moment Xiao Qi's smile froze. Yawu spoke in human language. "Don't say it, I think I really have a feeling." Xiao Qi was simply indescribably amazed. "It can talk?" Wang Lu was also indescribably amazed. "Isn't this new? It's not like it's a meat dog." Yawu ignored the two people. While sniffing its nose, it seriously said, "There's a strange smell everywhere on this Grand Cloud Mountain. I didn't feel it before, but after what you said, it's probably the same kind of smell." Wang Lu asked, "Can you make a further judgment?" "It's very difficult. Its smell is very scattered. Its smell is everywhere in the 500 li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain. It's impossible to lock its position. It doesn't matter. It's expected." Wang Lu nodded. If it was so easy to find, the Beast Master School would have gotten it long ago. This time we have plenty of time. The 500 li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain isn't that big. If we go there ourselves, we'll definitely find some clues. Yawu sniffed again and said, "There's a kind of moon smell." Wang Lu was surprised. He casually took out a moon cake from his mustard seed bag and threw it to the stupid dog. "You can even smell this? Is this the moon smell you were talking about?" Yawu was also surprised. Then it bit the moon cake and vaguely said, "Probably." After a while, the dog spat out the moon cake. "Meet mooncake." Chapter 186. When Wang Lu made up his mind to personally traverse the 1,000 li radius of the Grand Cloud Mountain and find the legendary young immortal beast a step ahead, on top of the Grand Cloud Mountain's forgotten peak, a group of Beast Master School Division elders were experiencing an unforgettable lightning tribulation. The forgotten peak of the Grand Cloud Mountain was the highest peak within a 1,000 li radius, overlooking the surroundings. And on the summit, there was originally a Taoist temple built by the cultivators of the White Dragon Temple, but it had been demolished by the Beast Master School and replaced with a gray palace built with mountain stones. It looked far more rough and fierce than the previous building. However, this palace, which was built and reinforced by a secret method, was trembling amidst the bursts of roars. Large and small cracks appeared on its surface, and dust and gravel rustled down, as if it could collapse at any time. "You two useless pieces of trash." And in the palace, a cat-eared girl with a defeated expression was kneeling in the middle. Next to her was a sturdy, half-naked man with battle scars on his skin. The two people were bombarded by the roars in the palace. They were on the verge of collapse, and blood overflowed from the 7 apertures of their heads. The cat-eared girl's cultivation was far higher than Chi-Ho's, but the pressure she was under was also thousands of times heavier, and she was already overwhelmed. And sitting on the chief seat, the one who emitted the rolling thunder was a valiant cultivator with a body even more sturdy than Chi-Ho. On his thick neck was a tiger's head. This was the great elder of this place, a nascent soul Taoist master, Tiger King Lei Zhen. This tiger-headed great elder was not a spirit beast, but a pure-blooded human cultivator. It was just that when he reached the nascent soul realm, he chose to permanently transform his body. Although he no longer had the appearance of a human, he had the magical abilities of a spirit beast. Today this tiger's thunder roar was one of them. With a nascent soul-level cultivation, even a peak king pill cultivator would not be able to withstand the thunder roar. Its power was more than 10 times stronger than the cat-eared girl's scream in the kernel. If not for the fact that this Tiger King had no intention to kill, the 11 elders in the palace would not have left a single one alive. And the people present also knew that although Tiger King was furious, he did not have any killing intent. They all raised their cultivation to resist, waiting for Tiger King's anger to dissipate a bit before discussing business. Not long after, the sound of thunder gradually subsided, and everyone felt relieved. However, Tiger King's cold snort made everyone's heart skip a beat again. "It has been more than a year since we came here from the Southern Heaven region. Everyone here is a Taoist master of the King Pill." 1 year is not a long time, but during this period our investment is by no means small. Including me, more than half of the people here have encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and need to go into closed-door cultivation as soon as possible. However, for the sake of the sect's grand plan, no one has relaxed for more than a year, not even for a moment. We started from scratch and the sect didn't give us much support. Every brick and tile in this mountain was built by us and it cost us a lot. Under his high chair, the 2 rows of elders sitting in front of him secretly nodded. More than 1 year, when they were in the Southern Heaven region, they had made a long-term plan for this matter. Counting those, everyone's investment has been difficult to estimate. Everything we have done has not been in vain. Our group of people came from afar, and in a year's time, we have laid our foundation here. Within a radius of 500 miles around the Grand Cloud Mountain, including the original owner of the White Dragon Temple, as well as more than 10 other large and small immortal cultivation forces, they have all been expelled by us. This mountain can now be said to be in the palm of our hands. Hearing this, the complexion of the 2 rows of elders sank. However, for the next 6 months, we can't even control this small area in the palm of our hands. That beast is hiding in the Grand Cloud Mountain, but we can't even find its shadow. 3 months ago when the sect's messenger came, can you guess what he said? The elders didn't need to guess. As long as they looked at Tiger King's gloomy face, they knew that those people from the Southern Heaven region absolutely didn't have any good words. I don't want to repeat those words. That day the messenger spoke rudely, so I have personally twisted his chin. The elders turned pale with fright. 3 months ago that messenger was the sovereign's favorite person. The elders on the Grand Cloud Mountain have been given the cold shoulder by the sect. Now wouldn't it be? Since 5 years ago when we learned about the moon spirit of the Grand Cloud Mountain, everything we have done has been for it. Since we have walked this road until now we have no way out. No matter what difficulties we encounter, whether it is the Southern Heaven region's hindrance, whether that moon spirit has a new magical ability, or whether it is that bastard Zen Master Guru blocking our way, the only thing we have to do is to crush all these problems. For this we have to do it by hook or by crook at all costs. Tiger King said and fiercely clenched his fist. Unexpectedly, he squeezed the air and made a deafening explosion sound. Ling Yin, you have always been responsible for Zen Master Guru's matter. This time it was also your mistake that let him run away. Now that we are in need of people, I will give you the opportunity to redeem yourself. You have to personally catch that bastard. The cat-eared girl hastily nodded her head to express her gratitude, but her quick-witted eyes also revealed a trace of doubt. In terms of cultivation, the middle-level King Pill Zen Master Guru naturally couldn't be compared with her, who was at the peak of the King Pill. However, the other party's cultivation method was brilliant, his background was deep, and his comprehensive strength was not much different from hers. That day, if she wasn't inside the Beast Master School's array, the cat-eared girl actually didn't have full confidence that she could defeat the opponent. Not to mention that Zen Master Guru also had a middle-level spiritual treasure in his hand, which was enough to reverse the situation of strength and weakness. Now, Tiger King wanted her to redeem herself by capturing Zen Master Guru, but if she really went to his door, it would be strange if she didn't use her Buddhist staff to beat her brains out. Tiger King glanced at her and coldly said, "What? Do you think it's difficult?" No, this subordinate doesn't dare. The cat-eared girl's cold sweat poured down, and her body trembled like a sieve. Humph, that dog bastard's cultivation is not high, but she has a good treasure in her hand. You're alone, so you're indeed not her opponent. However, I won't let you die in vain, so I'll lend you a person. The cat-eared girl's heart was startled and then immediately became happy. The cultivation of this Tiger King's 4 spirit beasts was not inferior to hers, and each of them had their own magical abilities. They were a rare and powerful partner. If she really had the help of those 4 spirit beasts, dealing with Zen Master Guru and those 2 small fries would be an easy matter. Well, come in. Following Tiger King's call, a person came from the back of the hall. This person had the smell of the Southern Heaven region, so it was obvious that he was the reinforcement that Tiger King had just called from the headquarters. However, as soon as this person appeared, the cat-eared girl, Ling Yin, was dumbfounded as if she was struck by lightning. How could it be him? Looking at the middle-aged cultivator who respectfully saluted Tiger King with a gentle smile on his face, Ling Yan's body involuntarily began to tremble. Her skin felt a tingling sensation and her heart was aching. She couldn't help but recall the cruel past. Today, Ling Yan has successfully transformed. Although a small part of her body still had the characteristics of a spirit beast, she was still a cultivator of the Beast Master School, enjoying all the treatment of human cultivators. However, before that, she was just an ordinary spirit beast of the Beast Master School. She was captured by the cultivators from the Barren Mountain, and after undergoing harsh training, she learned the rules of the human world. And at that time, the one responsible for training her was the brown-skinned cultivator before her. Beast Trainer Asia. Ling Yan. It's been a long time. In the face of that friendly smiling face, Ling Yan's whole body trembled and she took a few steps back. In the past, whenever Asia revealed such a smile, it meant the beginning of the pain. Seeing this abnormality, Tiger King frowned. I heard that in the Southern Heaven region, the 2 of you have the fate of master and disciple. You should know each other very well and have a tacit understanding with each other. In the past, the efficiency of your cooperation was also good, so I called him here. Ling Yan, do you have a problem? Ling Yan's eyes widened. She wanted to open her mouth, but being stared at by Tiger King's impatient eyes, she was unable to say anything. Perhaps Tiger King knew something about the past, but he didn't care. As he said, the two of them had the fate of master and disciple, so they had a tacit understanding with each other, and their efficiency was indeed good. If one didn't consider the pain that Ling Yan had experienced, they were indeed a perfect partner. As for Ling Yan's pain, did Tiger King need to care? I have no problem. Ling Yan clenched her fists, constantly telling herself in her heart, I am no longer the original me. Now that I am at the peak of King Pill, I don't need to be afraid of a mere middle-level King Pill Xia. Xia has been cultivating for more than 200 years, yet he still couldn't go any further. He is far inferior to me. However, while she was thinking, Xia's voice suddenly came from behind her. It's only been 30 years since we last met, but you're already a powerhouse at the peak of King Pill. What an enviable good root. While speaking, a few ice-cold fingers quietly rested on the back of Ling Yan's neck. A cold and gloomy energy suddenly spread out, as if it wanted to freeze her entire jade mansion. Ling Yan turned pale with fright. Just as she was about to summon her magical power to resist, that force disappeared without a trace. And Xia himself, from the beginning to the end, stood beside Tiger King, not moving even half a step. Beads of cold sweat dripped down from the girl's head. Her heart was in a mess. However, at this time, no one would pay attention to her abnormal state. Tiger King arranged the matter of Zen Master Dog Meat, and then began to arrange for everyone to continue to arrange the array formation on the Grand Cloud Mountain, and to refine the spirit treasure in order to capture the immortal beast Moon Spirit. Everyone held their breath, not daring to miss even the slightest detail. It was now approaching the 7th month, and the critical moment was getting closer and closer. Tiger King's task arrangement was getting tighter and tighter, so no one had the leisure to pay attention to other people's situation. After a long time, after Tiger King had arranged everyone's task, the present elders left one after another. However, there was one person who stayed in the hall with a pale complexion. That person was Chi Ho. After losing Silverback and White Teeth, his two great spirit beasts died in battle, his magical treasure was taken away, and his cultivation base was greatly reduced, almost unable to maintain his King Pill stage. In many people's view, this young elder has lost his value. And just now, when the task was assigned, the part that once belonged to Chi Ho was also distributed by Tiger King to the other elders. In action, no position. Tiger King's hints seemed to be clear enough, but Chi Ho was really unwilling to let it go. Great Elder however, the Tiger King completely ignored him. Without even looking at him, he turned around and left the main seat of the hall. Chi Ho was completely disheartened. He only felt a burst of stuffiness in his chest. The Golden King Pill in his jade mansion was covered with a layer of haze, which unexpectedly showed signs of cracking. However, at this time, a feminine force poured in from behind him, stabilizing the turbulence in his jade mansion. Chi Ho turned his head in surprise, but then he saw a slightly strange face. Xia? Chi Ho didn't know much about this beast tamer from the southern heaven region. He only knew that his cultivation base was just middle-level King Pill, and in the last 50 years he didn't have any big progress. In the immortal cultivation path he was already a waste. However, he was skilled in beast taming, so he was recognized by some great elders in the southern heaven region. Moreover, the great elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain, Tiger King, used some unknown method to transfer him over to become Ling Yan's partner. In short, he was a person who was far away from him. After all, even if the other party was a waste in the immortal cultivation path, he was still a waste in the middle-level King Pill, which was far stronger than him. Why would such a person look for him? Xia smiled. That brown-black face of his carried a trace of coldness that made Chi Ho horrified. There's something I want your help with. It just so happens that the great elder didn't assign you any task just now. I want to take advantage of your free time, to go to Celestial Water Lake. Chapter 187. The radius of 500 miles around the Grand Cloud Mountain couldn't be said to be big, but the mountain terrain was continuous and complex. In particular, the spiritual energy along the feng shui line changed rapidly, which converged and surged in the mountains, making the mountain environment even more changeable. When flying from the sky, perhaps the Grand Cloud Mountain couldn't be considered as vast, but when walking on the ground in 10 days or half a month, one could only walk a corner of the mountain. Wang Lu has been walking on the Grand Cloud Mountain for a whole week, but he still hasn't walked through the surrounding several peaks. On one hand, the landlord of this place, Beast Master School, has strengthened their vigilance. The number of patrolling disciples and spirit beasts were far more than usual, which brought a lot of obstacles to Wang Lu's hiking plan. On the other hand, the stupid dog that led the way also got into trouble. It often went around in circles, leading Wang Lu for half a day before it innocently whimpered and said that it was lost. Wang Lu walked on the Grand Cloud Mountain in order to borrow the quasi-immortal beast Quanzhouhua's power of resonance to find the immortal beast with the moon flavor ahead of the Beast Master School. Unfortunately, after a week he found out that this stupid dog was really useless. Of course, the stupid dog has its own explanation for this. Resonance should be useful. In the moonless night, I can feel the traces of its existence on the mountain, and I can even lock its approximate position. However, the other side clearly doesn't want to see us deliberately hiding. The resonance is weak, so even if it deliberately disguises itself, I can't do anything about it. With the stupid dog's level of intelligence, to organize such a well-organized speech, it could be seen that it was really anxious and crazy. Therefore, although Wang Lu was helpless, he could only throw the marinated bone from his mustard seed bag to it, letting it gnaw to its heart's content. After a week of climbing the mountain, this was the result. Wang Lu couldn't help but frown, inwardly thinking about how to proceed to the next step. As for the other two people, they didn't seem to have any pressure. Lu Li was naive and only longed for the beautiful scenery of the mountain. In any case, along the way Wang Lu entertained her with good food and drinks, so she had no worries and had a particularly carefree time. As for the immortal beast and Beast Master School, obviously she didn't care. However, the other companions seemed intriguing. In the past few days, Senior Xiaoqi and Lu Li had a very pleasant conversation. Her Buddhist name was Gluttonous Dog Meat Master, and obviously she had quite a bit of understanding about food. Needless to say, the characteristics of Lu Li were also needless to say. In the past few days, the two of them wished they could become sworn sisters. When they talked about delicacies from all over the world, even the genius Wang Lu couldn't get a word in. Although he had read a lot of books, he hadn't tasted many delicacies in person, so he couldn't participate in the conversation between the two professionals. However, Xiaoqi's activity was limited to this. In addition to eating, drinking and having fun, he didn't talk about anything else. When he didn't talk to Lu Li, he just silently followed behind Wang Lu, following Quanzhouhua around in circles, seemingly indifferent. Therefore Wang Lu asked, "Qingyang, aren't you anxious?" "What's the hurry?" Xiaoqi asked. "I'm not interested in that immortal beast anyway." Wang Lu asked, "You and the Beast Master School have an irreconcilable enmity of killing your father?" Xiaoqi spat, "You're the one who has an enmity of killing my father. Originally, I really don't like the Beast Master School. However, in the past few days, my interest in the Beast Master School has faded. If I can destroy this division, then I'll destroy it. If not, then it doesn't matter. I'm not the same as you, master and disciple, so I don't necessarily have to do things with results. The most important thing for people to live is to be happy. How about I cook a bowl of noodles for you to eat?" Wang Lu snappily said, "Even if you cook a bowl of noodles for me to eat, I won't be happy. Alas, there's no one under me, I have to do everything by myself." Xiaoqi, on the other hand, found it funny. "Who forced you to do things? You and the Beast Master School don't have any enmity of killing your father or snatching your wife. Even if the scene in the valley that day, as well as the wrongdoing of some of their elders, made you two have enmity, it's not that you can't let it go, so why are you so persistent?" Wang Lu, on the other hand, seriously answered this question. "Since I've decided to do it, then I'll try my best to do it. Professional adventurers don't have the habit of giving up halfway." "Oh, this explanation makes sense." Xiaoqi very simply accepted Wang Lu's explanation and nodded. "You two are indeed worthy to be called master and disciple, your style of doing things is exactly the same. But this is strange, your master has no choice but to work hard. She has already become used to working hard. Your aptitude and opportunities are far better than your master's. Is it necessary to work so hard?" The two of them were just casually chatting, but upon hearing Xiaoqi's words, Wang Lu's interest was immediately piqued. "My master has no choice? I'd like to hear the details." Xiaoqi was surprised. "You're her disciple, didn't she tell you about her matters?" Then he immediately felt relieved. "That's true, with her temperament she definitely wouldn't tell you about those things." Wang Lu immediately said, "So it's up to you, Qingyang, to uncover her dark history." Seeing that Wang Lu's eyes were sparkling, Xiaoqi couldn't help but find it funny. "Usually you always talk bad about your master, but now you put on the face of a fan. Actually, it's not a big deal. I don't know much about the specific things. After all, she and I are just fair-weather friends. It's just that we've known each other for a long time, so I know more. In fact, you've been cultivating with her for so many years, so you should have already seen the clues." His words were like a mountain of mist, but Wang Lu actually understood and nodded. Actually, I can see the problem from your cultivation method. Look at Luli beside you. She cultivates the ancient inheritance of brilliant sword heart, which pays particular attention to the unity of man and nature. Therefore, when she walks, sits, or lies down, her whole person seems to be integrated with the environment. Look at her walk, the distance of each step is different, but all of them fit the needs of the environment. The surrounding spiritual energy brushes past her body and comes out from her back, completely unaffected. However, when she really wants to move, the surrounding spiritual energy within a kilometer radius will move according to her heart. Of course, this is still far from the highest level of brilliant sword heart, but its nature has already manifested. As for you, when you walk, the distance of each step is exactly the same. Except for when you meditate, when your whole body is sealed, the surrounding spiritual energy can't penetrate even the slightest bit, and the magical power within your body won't flow out. What do you think this means? Although Shaoqi didn't clearly say the answer, how could he not understand it? Brilliant sword heart is an ancient inheritance. In ancient times, the surrounding spiritual energy was rich, and opportunities were everywhere. At that time, the cultivators were also high-spirited. As long as their aptitude wasn't too bad, they would advance triumphantly on the road of immortal cultivation. After all, the environment was too good. Therefore, the cultivation method that was born at that time often emphasized the integration with the environment and more use of the environment. As for this non-phase method, it's clearly a cultivation method that was born in a barren land. When Master invented this thing, she must have been under a lot of pressure. If not, how could 10 years ago, when he first passed this method to her, he solemnly said that the most important thing in immortal cultivation was to be hard enough. However, I can't guess what it is exactly. As a result, Shaoqi shrugged his shoulders. You can't guess? There are so many obvious clues, how could you not guess? 20 years ago, when I went on experiential learning with your master, even a simple and honest person like me could see a lot of things, how could you not see it? Although your Lingjian school has always been weak among the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, at least 200 years ago, the number of people in your school can't be considered to have withered. More than 100 years ago, it was known as the Golden Generation in your school. More than 100 talented immortal cultivation disciples shone brightly like the stars in the sky. That period of history might not be mentioned in your Spirit Sword Mountain, but most of the elders in the immortal cultivation world in the 9 regions know about it. However, Wang Lu hadn't heard much about this. He had been cultivating for 10 years, but he didn't go down the mountain for experiential learning for a long time. Thus, he didn't know about the concept of the Golden Generation. However, at this time he could roughly guess the follow-up. That Golden Generation was now only left with 10 people from the Heavenly Sword Hall. Obviously, the Lingjian school had suffered an unusually tragic blow, which led to less than 1 out of 10 talented disciples. What was even more frightening was, perhaps even the teachers of that era were also lost. Other sects, whether it was the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League or the first-rank sects like the Wanxiang sect, in addition to the sect leader and elders, most of the time, there would be some Grand Supreme Elders who were in closed-door training, whose seniority was even higher than the sect leader. And the number and strength of the Grand Supreme Elders were often the direct reflection of a sect's heritage. Lingjian school didn't have a single Grand Supreme Elder. Above Feng Yin, all of them were enshrined in the ancestral hall. There was not a single living person, which formed an unusually conspicuous gap. Now, it seemed like this was also the result of that great catastrophe. And his master Wang Wu, in the great catastrophe, invented the non-phase method in order to survive. She said that the most important thing in the immortal cultivation was to be hard enough, not to act like a hoodlum in broad daylight, but from the bottom of her heart. Perhaps that set of defensive survival methods seemed ridiculous to many people, but 100 years ago, the Golden Generation was almost extinct, and Wang Wu, who had a mediocre spirit root, actually survived. The dead genius was just a corpse, but the living Wang Wu could bring harm to the world. Who was superior and who was inferior at a glance was clear. Then, as mentioned by Shaoqi, his master loved to work hard. It was obviously not because she was diligent in cultivation, but purely because if she didn't work hard she would die. Thinking of this, his master was really a pitiful person. However, a pitiful person must have a hateful side. Among the 10 Heavenly Sword Hall elders, the other 9 were in good condition, but she was the only one who constantly broke the lower limit. It could be seen that this person also had her own nature. Thinking of this, he heard Shaoqi sigh, "Lingjian school, your generation of disciples is really blessed." Wang Lu frowned and was about to speak when he suddenly saw Shaoqi's expression freeze. Not long after, A feminine, cold, and particularly unpleasant voice came from behind. I finally meet you. Turning around, Wang Lu saw a gray robe, and under the gray robe was a dark brown face. That person seemed to be only 30 or 40 years old, but his eyes seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. With Wang Lu's current eyesight, although he could not accurately judge his cultivation level, he knew that this person was not as young as he looked. He must have cultivated for at least 100 years. That person had a smile on his face, but there was not a trace of friendliness. And behind that person stood a petite and exquisite girl. The girl was wearing a large cloak, covering her head and face. However, the hood was pushed up by the girl's two pointed ears. And her figure and appearance also looked particularly familiar. It was the peak of King Pill that he met a week ago, the cat-eared girl. Being approached by the people of Beastmaster School, Wang Lu frowned. The sword of Mount Kuan naturally appeared in his hand. His cultivation level was not high, so in front of a King Pill level expert, he simply had no power to protect himself. However, when he used his non-phase sword defense, even a King Pill level expert would have to spend some effort. This effort should be enough for Xiao Qi to open the door and escape. However, that dark brown cultivator was the first to open his mouth and said, "We have no malice." Chapter 188. We have no malice? Yes, nowadays the theme of the immortal cultivation world in 9 regions is peace and development. The number of barbarians who would blatantly shout that they are here to destroy and conquer is getting fewer and fewer. Even if it was clear that the iron hooves of the army trampled on the people, causing them to be in a terrible situation, the general holding the flag would hold up his bloody hands and shout, "We bring you democracy and freedom." Yes, the left hand is democracy, the right hand is freedom. Left hand and right hand, break your tendons and bones. Therefore, when he heard that dark brown cultivator said that he had no malice, Wang Lu smiled. Only dead people have no malice. If you cut your own throat with your sword, I will believe you. That dark brown cultivator ignored this ridicule. His smile didn't change as he continued, "I am a Xia. You've seen the one beside me, cat girl Ling Yan." As a Xia said that, his smile gradually faded, and he assumed a serious posture. However, his pair of dark eyes were still unfathomable. A week ago, we received the instruction of the great elder of the Grand Cloud Mountain to solve the trouble brought by the 3 of you. Wang Lu asked, "And then you came without malice?" Xia said, "Exactly. Because I always feel that, compared to extermination, many things can be resolved peacefully." Resolved peacefully? Yes. For example, here, on behalf of the Beastmaster School's Grand Cloud Mountain Division, I implore the 3 of you to let bygones be bygones and bury the hatchet. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu nodded again and again. Since rape doesn't work, you come to seduce them. Your calculation is really good. Xia smiled again. Yes, I have carefully calculated it. If I have to fight with the 3 of you, I don't know how much trouble it would be. A middle-rank King Pill with a spiritual treasure can freely enter and exit my Beastmaster School's inescapable net. Such an opponent may be defeated or repelled, but if we want to completely solve it, I'm afraid even our great elder may not be able to do it. What's more, we are still short of manpower in our plan. If we split our manpower to deal with the 3 of you, I'm afraid we would end up in a dilemma. So why bother? Hearing this, Xiao Qi was stunned for a moment and said, "You're quite an interesting person. You're different from those beastly fellows." Xia slightly cupped his hands in obeisance. "To be honest, my cultivation base is shallow and my aptitude is dull. In this life, I have no hope to go further, so naturally, I'm not as sharp as the other disciples. But because of this, there are some problems that they can't solve, but I can. Actually, in my opinion, there isn't any deep hatred between the 2 sides. There's no need to make things so tense." Xiao Qi asked, "No deep hatred?" Xia said, "It's just a few thousand dogs, is it worth it to have such a deep hatred?" It was the elders who dealt with this matter that overreacted. If you are willing to let bygones be bygones, we will sincerely apologize for our previous rudeness. Saying that, he turned his gaze towards Wang Lu. Similarly, I also want to apologize to you for Elder Chiho's rude behavior. Wang Lu sneered, "If apologies are useful, then what's the point of using hell money?" Xia nodded again and again. Exactly. How can empty words win people's trust? Therefore, in order to show sincerity, look. With that, Xia took out something from his loose robe. Upon seeing it, Wang Lu couldn't help but look sluggish. It was an arm. The muscles were plump and the bones were coarse. His memory was very good. He remembered it was Chiho's right hand. As a Beast Master School elder, he was not strict enough. 2 of his disciples conspired against your excellency's spirit beast. Later, he was bewitched and actually wanted his spirit beast to snatch it away. Finally, he even personally intervened. In accordance with Beast Master School's rules, he should be severely punished. Now, I take an arm as an apology. I don't know if I can get your excellency's forgiveness? Not to mention the weight of this arm, it was rare for a Taoist Master King Pill to speak so lowly to Wang Lu, a middle-level foundation establishment stage cultivator. Although Asia's pair of strange eyes hid an unfathomable expression, his attitude was really impeccable. In response to this, Wang Lu laughed. You guys actually know how to make use of waste. That day he, Lu Li and Quan Zhouhua joined hands to repel Chi Ho, killed his 2 spirit beasts, and broke his magical treasure. Thus, at least 60% of Chi Ho's ability was wasted. Although the King Pill stage was still there, according to Wang Lu's ranking system, it was the 9 levels N of King Pill. Thus, his real strength had long fallen to an unknown degree. And after suffering such a heavy blow with Chi Ho's aptitude and temperament, how could it be easy for him to make a comeback? He was indeed a waste. And what was the value of a waste's arm? However, Wang Lu unscrupulously pointed out this issue, which was somewhat like a slap in the face. However, Xia was still not angry and continued to nod. Indeed, this alone is not enough to prove our sincerity. Therefore, Ling Yan, come here. Behind him, the cat-eared girl in the cloak trembled, slowly walked over, and then took off her hood. She was still that young girl who had transformed from a spirit beast, but there was no lack of heroic spirit. However, compared to a few days ago, her complexion was deathly pale, and her spiritual aura had completely disappeared. Furthermore, she wore a black eye patch on her face covering her right eye. Then the girl stretched out her right hand. In her palm, there was a cat's eye stone that shone brightly. You. Xiaoqi was surprised and even vaguely angry. The nearby Wang Lu also slightly widened his eyes. Obviously, this scene was not within his expectation. Xia was still smiling. Using this high-rank spiritual object as compensation should be able to prove our sincerity. Wang Lu was silent. Xiaoqi was silent. Lu Li incredulously looked at the girl and the cat's eye stone in her hand. She wanted to open her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. Regarding this, even a harsh person would have nothing to say. If Chi Ho's right hand was just a waste, then this cat's eye stone was a spiritual object created by a peak Taoist master of King Pill. Moreover, by using a secret method to remove the eyeball and turn it into a gem, the lost right eye was almost impossible to regenerate, unless one advanced to Yuanying and got a chance to reshape the body. However, from peak King Pill to Yuanying, it was not easy to cross the hurdle. Ling Yan was a spirit beast in human form, so her advancement was several times more difficult than a human cultivator. Now that her body was damaged, the difficulty increased again, and it could be said that her advancement was hopeless. Such a loss, even in a first-rate sect, could not be ignored. The number of Taoist Master of King Pill and Beast Master School was not small, but each of them had their own value. To just casually cripple one of them, it was really... Wang Lu was silent for a moment. His eyes were firmly locked on Xia. The other party's posture was impeccable, but because of this, it made people feel uncomfortable, because such conditions simply had irresistible power. Xia's posture was very low, but behind him there was a mountain-like weight. What? It was very simple. If at this time Xia took out gold and silver or even high-rank spiritual treasure, Wang Lu could say, I, your father, am of noble character and unquestionable integrity, so I don't care. However, the other party's eyeballs were already dug out and you still don't care? Then what else do you want? Will you only be satisfied when the entire Beastmaster School is dead? At that time, the unreasonable one would no longer be the Beastmaster School who was in the wrong, but the unforgiving Wang Lu. He had to admit that although this method was vicious and by no means righteous, it did put people in a dilemma. Wang Lu was silent. Looking at the increasingly meaningful smile on Xia's face, his heart gradually became angry. Wang Lu was a person who, most of the time, was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. If he treated him with sincerity, unless there was a contradiction that couldn't be reconciled, otherwise Wang Lu would always leave some leeway. However, right now, Xia's seemingly soft but actually hard attitude provoked Wang Lu. Interesting, you want to play tricks with me? Are you sure? However, before Wang Lu could take action, he heard Xiaoqi's compassionate sigh from behind him. If you really have sincerity, why be generous at other people's expense? You also have eyes, why don't you dig out your own eyes? While speaking, Xiaoqi, holding the Buddhist staff, stepped forward a few steps. That thick Buddhist staff emitted a soft golden light. Under the light, Wang Lu only felt a burst of warmth from the bottom of his heart. He could not help but be surprised. "Seventh Madame Yu." The next moment he couldn't speak. Just as Xiao Qi took a few steps forward, the woman's figure became infinitely tall. Her purple robe, along with the Buddhist staff, emitted a soft Zen light. She raised her hands and feet, petals fluttered, and the Zen sound lingered in the air. Around the woman, it was as if there were hundreds of arhats chanting sutras in unison. The momentum was vast and the faint power was irresistible. What a poor child. Xiao Qi looked at the cat-eared girl with infinite compassion. Then he stretched out his Buddhist staff. His speed seemed slow, but it was actually fast and it could not be resisted at all. The crystallized cat's eye stone suddenly rotated. From its angular appearance, it gradually swelled up, and a moment later, it turned into a watery mass. At this point, even the mysterious Asia's face showed great surprise. Ling Yan's right eye was removed by a secret technique, crystallized, and turned from a living thing to a dead thing. But Xiao Qi's Zen light could bring a dead person back to life, turning a dead thing back to life. Could be said to be a magical skill. Go. Xiao Qi sighed. His Buddhist staff slightly trembled, and the eyeball in Ling Yan's palm turned into a swift light and flew into the eye patch. The girl cried out in surprise and then took off the eye patch. A quick-witted eye rolled, clear as ever. Really a good trick. Wang Lu was simply amazed. How could he not see the difficulty of petrifying a cat's eye into a cat's eye? Moreover, Xiao Qi was just a doppelganger. Her magical power realm was only the middle level of King Pill. Although the Buddhist staff in her hand was a spiritual treasure, it was far from enough to create such a miracle. What was magical was not the Buddhist staff but Xiao Qi. Using the King Pill realm to turn the dead into life meant that she had comprehended the way of reincarnation, which was the great Tao that many great cultivators of Zen sect failed to comprehend. Sure enough, the person who could be friends with his master was by no means an ordinary person. And Xiao Qi's move, in addition to showing her amazing strength, also resolved Xia's trick. Your eyeball, I will return it to you. If you want to reconcile, please give me a new price tag. And Xiao Qi had just said that if she was sincere, she should dig out her own eye. Xiao Qi was still holding the Buddhist staff. The Zen light around her was still there, and the Zen sound did not stop. However, the benevolence of all living beings had disappeared without a trace. The woman coldly stared at Xia, seemingly waiting for him to dig out his own eye. Zen Master Guru had the means of a Zen master, but she didn't have the compassion of a Zen master. When she was in a bad mood, she could eat thousands of spirit dogs on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Similarly, she didn't mind digging out the eyeball of a sinister person. Xia sighed. This is really embarrassing. It seems that today's visit is not the right time. Let's meet again next time. Want to leave? Wang Lu raised his eyebrows. Holding the sword of Mount Kuan, he took a step forward. Completely disregarding the insurmountable gap between the middle level of Foundation Establishment and the middle level of King Pill, he made the first move. Xia's complexion was dignified. Of course, he didn't care about Wang Lu's plain sword thrust. Even without the constraint of the Big Heart Demon Oath, Wang Lu's attack power was still appalling. However, at this time Wang Lu was not alone. When he thrust his sword forward, the naive girl behind him, though she didn't know the reason, moved one step faster than Wang Lu. The same sword thrust, but Lu Li's attack could not be ignored. Even though the distance between high-level Foundation Establishment and middle-level Jindan was like the distance between heaven and earth, Brilliant Sword Heart was like the bridge between heaven and earth. With this sword thrust, Xia felt that his whole body's magical power was faintly shaken. If he wanted to take it head-on, although it was not that he couldn't take it, but considering that the opposite party still had the unfathomable Zen method of Zen Master Dog Meat, Xia decided to escape. Xia and Ling Yan came together, so naturally they wouldn't leave alone. Xia stepped back. His body had already lit up with the floating light of the escape technique. He reached out to grab Ling Yan, but Ling Yan was a bit slow and didn't immediately follow him. However, at this time, Lu Li's sword suddenly changed its momentum and slashed in front of Ling Yan. Xia's eyebrows twitched and the connection between him and Ling Yan was cut off. The next moment, the floating light on his body flashed. Although his body was teleported away by a spell, in a twinkling of an eye, he was already dozens of miles away. A certain cat-eared girl was left behind. It was almost the same tactic as the one used to deal with Chiho. The only difference was that at that time she left behind a skull that only had a commemorative value. This time she left behind a peak level of King Pill, pet? Looking at the cowering Ling Yan, no matter who it was difficult to associate her with the overbearing elder from a few days ago. Chapter 189. Xiao Qi, Wang Lu, and Lu Li, the three of them joined forces to stop Xia's right-hand man, making that gloomy middle-aged cultivator return in low spirits, thus winning a glorious victory. To sum it up simply, it was probably this sentence. Then, the three of them looked at the spoils of their glorious victory in silence. Ling Yan was surrounded by the three of them. The beard on her cheeks constantly trembled, unable to conceal the high tension and fear in her heart. Her cultivation base was the highest among them. Her peak king pill cultivation base was even far beyond Xiao Qi's. Moreover, Wang Lu and Lu Li were left far behind. It was reasonable to say that she alone could easily defeat the three of them. However, she was very clear that if they really fought, the three of them would only need one or two moves to take her life. Although this place was still within the boundary of the Grand Cloud Mountain, there was no array that she was familiar with. Without the array to extract the spiritual energy from the feng shui line, or even the power of the entire Grand Cloud Mountain, she didn't think that she could defeat Zen Master Guru solely by relying on her magical power cultivation base. Not to mention those two foundation establishment cultivators were far more powerful than they looked. More importantly, in the face of the woman who made her right eye see the light again, Ling Yan's heart was indescribably complicated. Perhaps when Xia reached out his hand to beckon her to leave, that moment of stagnation came from this. However, in the face of the present situation, the girl's heart was at a loss as to what to do next. So, what should we do next? Xiao Qi also didn't have any idea. Therefore, he bluntly asked for help from Wang Lu, who always had too many ideas. Wang Lu crossed his arms and looked at the seemingly 12 or 13 years old cat-eared girl in front of him. How about we do some perverted things to her? If it was someone else who said this, Xiao Qi would most likely just treat it as a verbal cannonball. However, since it was Wang Lu who said it, Xiao Qi held his monk's staff and half-warned, "Hey, in any case, you're also a person with prestige." Wang Lu also said, "Therefore, perverted things must be done quietly. She's a Beast Master School Division elder. Although she looks a bit weak, she's still stronger than that muscular trash called Chiho. Maybe we can find some important clues from her, so I suggest that we use a perverted method to torture her." Xiao Qi asked, "I can understand interrogation and torture, but why do you have to emphasize perverts?" Wang Lu said matter-of-factly, "No matter what I do to a girl who looks like she's only 12 or 13 years old, I'll look like a pervert. So I might as well do it openly. As expected of your master's disciple. What a perverted and honorable person." Fortunately, the cat-eared girl didn't really have to wait for Wang Lu to use any kind of insane martial arts. She confessed everything in detail and the process was a complete mess. In this regard, Ling Yan's explanation was also particularly convincing. "I can't go back and I don't want to go back." Having seen Xia's method of taking out the eyeball, it was not difficult to understand Ling Yan's defection. After all, cats were never known for their loyalty. After defecting, Ling Yan had a bit of self-abandonment. There were a lot of things that Wang Lu didn't ask, but she already confessed herself, including the great cause that Tiger King and the other elders conspired here, which was the news about the immortal beast Moon Spirit. The information about the immortal beast was first obtained by chance when we were in the Southern Heaven region. Although our Beast Master School is not good at divination, we are particularly sensitive to the news related to spirit beasts. Therefore, in recent years in the 9 regions, there are basically Beast Master School's shadow in the events related to rare spirit beasts. This was completely in line with the understanding of Wang Lu and the others, so they nodded to show their acceptance. However, immortal beast, even in the vast 9 regions, is rarely seen in 100 years. Therefore there is a great controversy about this in the sect. First, the location of the immortal beast is in the Cloud region, not within the sphere of influence of the Beast Master School. Second, it's just the result of a divination which is not enough to win people's trust. Therefore in the end only the radical sect elder Tiger King Lei Zhen led his people from the Southern Heaven region. For this reason he paid a great price. Basically, it's impossible for us to return to the Southern Heaven region. However, when we entered the Grand Cloud Mountain we found out that this bet was probably right. There are indeed traces of the immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Moreover, it's the precious young immortal beast. Wait a minute. Xiao Qi interrupted, what is the origin of that immortal beast? Before we actually catch it we can't be sure. However, according to the current situation, we can infer that the young immortal beast should be a natural variant. It's the spirit of creation of all living things on the Grand Cloud Mountain, born from the moonlight. Therefore we call it the moon spirit. Wang Lu recalled what he learned in the Teng Cloud Hall in the past and confirmed it with Ling Yan's statement. There was no contradiction. Most of the immortal beasts in the 9 regions were not the result of the reproduction of normal creatures, but were born from the creation of heaven and earth. Because they possessed the characteristics of a certain spirit beast, they were classified as immortal beasts. For example, before the Age of Chaos, there was an immortal beast that jumped out from a stone. It was born with magical ability and was incomparably powerful. Because it looked like a spirit monkey, it was honored as the Monkey King. As for this immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain, although no one could see its appearance with their own eyes, Beast Master School had been tracking it for a long time and had determined that it should be a spirit dog. Therefore they collected the spirit of thousands of dogs and created a special beast collar to suppress dogs, trying to force the immortal beast out. Of course, in addition to this, Beast Master School had been chasing the immortal beast on the Grand Cloud Mountain for more than a year and had mastered a lot of information. This information was not enough to help them catch the moon spirit, but in the hands of Wang Lu and the others, it might have an unexpected magical use. From my memory, this is the map of the moon spirit's whereabouts that was jointly deduced by several elders. As Ling Yan spoke, her white and tender little hand drew a line in front of her, drawing out a translucent map of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Within it, red lines marked the moon spirit's whereabouts. Although it is an immortal beast, although it is the spirit of all living things since it is a living creature, it must abide by the laws of living creatures. From the time its spiritual sense became clear until now, the time absolutely did not exceed 10 years. Therefore, even though it has the aptitude of an immortal beast, its strength is still very limited. In addition, in this past year, it was tired of escaping from our pursuit and had no time to cultivate, so its strength is very limited. Until now, it has not been able to transform. Using the standard of human cultivation, it is below the king pill. As Ling Yan spoke, she gradually recovered some of the imposing manner of someone at the peak of the king pill. When she mentioned the moon spirit, it was as if she was talking about a bird in a cage. She didn't care that in terms of origin, the moon spirit was much higher than her, a spirit cat. Because its strength is insufficient, its movements are greatly restricted. Even though it has magical ability and can repeatedly escape from our pursuit, after a year, we still found many patterns. Within this 500 li of the Grand Cloud Mountain, there are several places where the probability of it appearing is higher. Wang Lu earnestly looked at the map and asked, "The nodes of the feng shui line?" Then, without waiting for Ling Yan to confirm, he continued to infer, "Yes, it should be like this. It is the spirit of all living things in the Grand Cloud Mountain. Before it transforms, it cannot leave the Grand Cloud Mountain just like a baby cannot leave the restraint of the umbilical cord. And it can, with its Shudan stage, play around with more than 10 of your Beast Master School Division's King Pill disciples and a Yuanying stage cultivator. Obviously, this is also because the entire Grand Cloud Mountain is helping it. But this kind of help is also traceable. In the final analysis, it is the nodes of the feng shui line. You are also clear about this point, but the Grand Cloud Mountain is a place that can breed immortal beasts. The changes of the feng shui line are mysterious and strange. It is absolutely not something that you group of beast tamers can grasp. Therefore, even if you know that the immortal beast's whereabouts are related to the feng shui line, you still can't catch it. You can only draw a few approximate locations and try your luck. While speaking, Wang Lu raised his head and glanced at the amazed cat girl Ling Yan. Is that right? Ling Yan suppressed the amazement in her heart. Just now, that inference was indeed correct. Moreover, that was the answer that the Beast Master School Division's elders had painstakingly looked through the information for several days. Unexpectedly, this seemingly young cultivator was actually so familiar with the immortal beasts and the feng shui line, easily grasping it at his fingertips. Of course, in the eyes of Wang Lu, Ling Yan's amazement was like a stupid beast that couldn't understand the realm of a top student. Then, since there is a ready-made result, Wang Lu said, calculating on the map and confirming a few points, there is no harm in taking advantage of the time to try our luck. As a quasi-immortal beast, Quan Zhuhua had a resonance with the moon spirit. Previously, it was deliberately avoided by the other party so they couldn't meet. However, if they could grasp the moon spirit's trajectory, they could wait for it to come to them, guarding the other party's path, and when the time came, coupled with the resonance, it would be difficult not to meet them. In accordance with the location delineated by Wang Lu, the group quickly adjusted their direction and trekked through the mountains and rivers. The radius of 500 miles around Grand Cloud Mountain was not vast, but walking on the territory that the Beastmaster School had been operating for more than a year, their speed naturally couldn't be fast. Xiaoqi took the lead with her staff in hand, using her unique spell to cover their tracks. Wang Lu followed closely behind, chatting with her from time to time. Xiaoqi casually asked, "By the way, do you really believe that cat girl's words? I thought you've always been a person who doesn't believe others." Wang Lu looked back at the cat girl who was happily talking with Lu Li, and asked rhetorically, if she lied, wouldn't the price be too tragic? If things change, I guarantee that she will be the first to die. Xiaoqi gently nodded and flatly described a simple fact. Wang Lu said, therefore no matter what, she's still a peak king pill cultivator. Using her life as a bait is a bit too extravagant. Xiaoqi also agreed. Previously she said that she doesn't want to go back, that she can't go back. I can hear it. It's so easy to change sides. Should I say that she's indeed a treacherous official? And to be able to expose Lin Yan's treacherous official's character, that Xia really has a skill. Xiaoqi's face sank. That person is not simple. I can see that, a middle-level king pill beast tamer who can play with the peak king pill cat girl in the groin, how could he be a simple person? I believe that groin was just a slip of the tongue, right? No, I did it on purpose. Wang Lu said, stopped, looked around and said, we're almost there. Xiaoqi was a bit curious. We're almost there? As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaoqi felt the ground beneath his feet begin to tremble slightly. A moment later, the trembling rapidly expanded, and the mountains began to shake. The surrounding mountains began to rise rapidly, forming precipitous cliffs that caused one's heart to palpitate. Not long after, the few of them were surrounded by a layer of cage-like mountain peaks. The 5 mountain broken veins technique was used for the second time. Wang Lu didn't even bother to look at Xia who was standing on the top of the mountain. He just said to Xiaoqi, now we can let that cat die in front of us. Chapter 190. When the Beastmaster School's 5 mountain broken veins technique reappeared in front of Xiaoqi, the woman's complexion was solemn and her heart was heavy. That Xia was really not simple. He chose a good time. Last time, when the cat girl Ling Yan presided over the array, Xiaoqi easily escaped with the equality of all living beings and the door of convenience. But now it was difficult for her to recreate the miracle. Because just a day ago she had just created a small miracle. Using the reincarnation method, she revived the cat girl's right eye. If she had done it with her peak Yuaning stage cultivation base, it could be said that it was as easy as lifting a finger. But now she was just the incarnation of the king pill, and it was already somewhat painful. At this time her own magical power and the recovery of the Buddhist staff were not in their best state. But these were not the things worth caring about. Xiaoqi was very clear about her own situation. Despite knowing that her condition was not good, she still followed the cat girl's guidance and walked on the Grand Cloud Mountain. Because she always thought that the cat girl would not harm her. Indeed, cats were never known for their loyalty. However, in the face of a master who humiliated and abused her, in the face of a sect that she could not return to, did she have many choices? This had nothing to do with loyalty but with value. Needless to say, if something went wrong she would bear the brunt. Xiaoqi promised to let her die at the forefront, and it was not that she didn't have the ability to fulfill her promise. However, even so, the scene before them still happened. Perhaps the cat girl was not the leader of this trap, but to say that she didn't know about it, who would believe it? When the cat girl let the group of people walk into the trap without saying a word, she was already an enemy. To deal with an enemy, it was natural to let her die as fast as she could. Without waiting for Wang Lu's urging, Xiaoqi fiercely waved her Buddhist staff backward. The Zen light that was released was no longer soft and compassionate. Instead, it was filled with the sharpness and hardness of metal and stone. This staff swing had the power to split a mountain. The binding spell on the cat girl's body had long been activated by Xiaoqi, so she had no way to avoid it. She could only stand there blankly and let the angry Xiaoqi's staff hit her head. Bang! The delicate little head exploded on the spot, and a large amount of red and white matter splashed out. The girl's corpse was thrown out by the great force, and fell hundreds of meters away, deeply embedded into the rock wall of the 5 mountain broken veins. The broken hole was sealed by the falling rocks, and it looked like a natural grave. Xiaoqi killed the cat girl with one strike, but she was in a very low mood. She had taken the name of Zen Master Guru and had already taken thousands of lives, but this did not mean that she was bloodthirsty. On the contrary, her restraint and disgust towards killing was much stronger than many cultivators who claim to be benevolent and righteous. She resisted the self-loathing in her heart and attacked. Although the power of the staff was swift and fierce, it was also conflicted. And it was this dilemma that caused her to unintentionally overlook something. Qingyang, to be distracted at this time, you're really a bold person with great skill. Wang Lu's timely words awakened Xiao Qi from her complex emotions, and then she found out that she had fallen into another trap. Just now, when she used her staff to blow the cat girl's head, naturally, it was stained with a lot of blood. She was in a trance and didn't think too much about it. However, now it seemed, the staff had been covered with a layer of dim dirty light. That cat girl actually used her own blood to put a curse on it at the last moment. Although the spiritual treasure was not destroyed, it could not be of any use for the time being. At this point, the equality of all living beings and the door of convenience, the sharp weapon to break the 5 mountain broken veins technique, had completely lost its effectiveness. Without Xiao Qi's spiritual treasure, how could Wang Lu and Lu Li escape from the hands of Taoist Master King Pil? However, Xiao Qi was not in a hurry because Wang Lu still looked calm, and as long as he didn't panic, she had nothing to panic about. However, then she heard Wang Lu sigh, "Qingyang, when you and my master traveled together in 9 regions, did she often scold you?" Xiao Qi was silent for a moment and decided not to answer. "To be honest, you're really stupid. Just now, since you've already wanted to blow the head with your staff, why do you have to leave room for hypocrisy? If you blow the cat girl's body away and directly bury it between the rocks, do you think she would get up and say thank you to you? She would only get up and laugh at you for being brainless." Speaking to this, Wang Lu stretched out his hand and pointed at the crack in the mountain wall. A pile of rocks suddenly moved, and from it, a small bloody hand stretched out. A moment later, the cat girl Ling Yan struggled out in embarrassment. Her face was covered with dust and blood, but there was a smile on her face. There was both the joy of escaping death and the ridicule from Wang Lu. This. Xiao Qi frowned, recalling the feeling when she blew the cat girl's head with her staff. Although she used some skill, she absolutely did not show any mercy. The cat girl's head was also not fake. So, you still don't understand? One cat has 9 lives. How can a cultivator who has transformed into a spiritual cat be so easy to kill? She can be resurrected. Although with her ability, I'm afraid her cultivation base will drop a few levels after resurrection. But if you just killed her on the spot, her resurrection would just be one more death. Now she is really free. The distance between the two of them was hundreds of meters. For a cultivator of the King Pill level, it was not far. However, within the scope of the 5 mountain broken veins technique, it was like a natural moat. Therefore, Xiao Qi did not waste his magical power to try to pursue her. He just silently watched Ling Yan calmly move her limbs, and then lightly flew to the sky until she arrived at Asia's side. Beautifully done. Asia seemed to never forget that signature gloomy smile. I've decided to give you some reward. Hearing the word reward, Ling Yan's whole body trembled, as if recalling a horrible scene. Because of her death, her pale face became even more unsightly. However, the next moment, Asia just bent down, kissed Ling Yan's pair of smart cat ears, and then rubbed the cat girl's head. This seemingly gentle and kind action slightly reduced the cat girl's fear. If the so-called reward was just this, then, unfortunately, Asia immediately said, "Well, I'll give you the rest when it's over." The cat girl's fear came back to her heart, and the ups and downs of her mood made her so sad that she wanted to vomit blood. Witnessing everything, Xiao Qi couldn't help but feel a little nauseous. That guy is simply a pervert. As he said that, he felt even more unacceptable. Previously, she clearly said that she didn't want to go back. At that time, I clearly heard that she wasn't lying. Why, did she want to go back to that pervert as if seeking her own death? Wang Lu sneered. She didn't want to go back, but she didn't say that she wanted to stay with us either. 2 evils are equal. Didn't she make her own choice? Xiao Qi was speechless. You've long guessed that it would be like this? If I had, I would have killed that cat with 3 surnames. Wang Lu said in a deep voice, it's just that I've never believed her and I've always been on guard. Now that the situation has developed to this point, it proves that my worries are not wrong. Hindsight is still accurate. In other words, you have no other way? However, before Wang Lu could speak, Asia, who was still in midair, couldn't bear the loneliness anymore. We meet again? Wang Lu asked with a smile, still without malice. Asia nodded very seriously. Still without malice. Still the same request, I hope we can let go of our former enmity and bury the hatchet. Xiao Qi couldn't help but ask, You designed such a big show just to repeat the same old tune? Xia said with a smile, this can better reflect my sincerity. At this point I still don't intend to have a confrontation with you. As long as you are willing to promise not to interfere with our Beast Master School's capture of Immortal Beast, the 5 Broken Veins Mountain will immediately be cancelled. Ling Yan and I will respectfully send you out of the Grand Cloud Mountain. Moreover, we will also present you with good gifts. This should be more sincere than the previous time. Xiaoqi asked, I really don't see what's the benefit of doing this. Xia said, my benefit is that, compared to having a confrontation with the several of you, if we can solve the problem peacefully, the price to pay is the least. I believe you have heard from Ling Yan that there are 12 King Pill Elders and 1 Yuaning Stage Great Elder of Beastmaster School in the Grand Cloud Mountain. Their comprehensive strength is more than 10 times stronger than yours. However, this 10 times strength can't all be used on the 3 of you. Compared to that immortal beast moon spirit that comes and goes without a trace. Forgive me for my rudeness, but the 3 uninvited guests can only be regarded as a small interlude. This doomed us not to want and cannot invest too much energy on you. That being the case, instead of fighting to the point where both sides suffer, it's better to make peace. I don't know if this explanation is acceptable or not. Xiaoqi was silent for a moment and then asked, that guy Lei Zhen, will he accept your method? Great Elder has a fiery temper. Indeed, he won't be like me in handling matters. According to his instruction, we should do our best to capture the 3 of you and bring you to him. If we fail, we should kill you on the spot, and we should do it at all costs. Xiaoqi asked, and then you dare to disobey him? Yes, compared to disregarding the reality and forcibly carrying out the order, the final loss would be disastrous and even implicate the important matter. Changing the method of carrying out the order, we can get a better result. I believe Great Elder will also accept my little disobedience. He really knows how to conduct himself and also knows how to do things. Xiaoqi could not help but sigh. If he was alone, he would most likely accept his condition. Compared to a lose-lose situation, although Xia's attitude was nauseating, rationally, it could be regarded as a better solution. As for the problem of trust between the 2 sides, it was actually not a big deal. The only problem was, would Wang Lu accept this kind of plan? Compared to him, who had been experiencing the secular world of 9 regions for 100 years, would this boy, who had only cultivated for 10 years and had always been smooth sailing, accept the plan of a person who stood on a high place and talked to him condescendingly? Of course not. As expected, Wang Lu's answer was not unexpected. However, his explanation greatly surprised Xiaoqi. Thanks to you, Qinyang, who was willing to talk so much nonsense with him, I am now convinced of one thing, and it is also this thing that prompted me to make my decision. What? That beast trainer is a waste. And I never accept a waste's proposal. Chapter 191. That beast trainer is a waste. Wang Lu didn't deliberately emphasize it, but he also didn't deliberately conceal it. His voice was not loud, but everyone present could hear it clearly. In midair, Xia's smile didn't change at all. However, Ling Yan, who was next to him, clearly saw that his hands behind his back slightly trembled, as if he was about to clench his fists. Obviously, his heart was not calm. What do you mean by waste? Xiaoqi could see that Wang Lu had something to say, so he very cooperatively continued. In a high-rank sect like Beastmaster School, even after cultivating for more than 200 years, he's still only a middle-level king pill. If he's not a waste, then what is he? Xiaoqi laughed in spite of himself. Turns out you mean that his cultivation base is not high. You can't compare everyone with an evildoer like you. In 9 regions, a middle-level king pill can be regarded as a mainstay of the immortal cultivation world. Moreover, cultivation base doesn't mean everything, Wang Lu interrupted. Usually only those whose strength is strong enough to really trample on the cultivation base, and who regard cross-level challenges as natural as eating and drinking water, have the qualification to despise the cultivation base. But that beast trainer, let alone cross-level challenges, even if it's a same-level opponent, he wouldn't have any advantage. In academic terms, he's nothing more than a 5-level king pill minus 3 dregs. He's a beast trainer, a wise general, so he doesn't necessarily need to be strong. That's right. So to put it bluntly, he's just a fox flaunting the tiger's might, a villain who relies on spirit beasts to show off his prestige. His powerful image is completely based on the humiliation of spirit beasts. You see, if he didn't play with that peak king pill Ling Yan in the groin, who would think that he's strong if he's alone? About this, including the fact that he condescendingly used the 5 mountain broken veins technique to trap us, it's not because of his own ability. It's Ling Yin who sacrificed his eyeball to let 7th Madam use the death transformation technique. It's Ling Yin who used his life as bait to lure us into this place. It's Ling Yin who put a curse on his own blood essence to pollute the spiritual treasure. What did he do in the whole process? In fact, I'm afraid that the one who unleashed the 5 great mountain meridian rupturing art and used it as a deterrent force here was the other spirit beasts under him, not him. Shao Qi smiled and said, to be able to mobilize so many spirit beasts and make Ling Yin, who is at the peak of King Pill, risk her life for him, it's quite a feat. Ability? Whose ability was it? He's just a middle-grade King Pill. What makes him think that he can make the cat girl, who's at the peak of King Pill, work for him? Is it because of his charisma and unique skills? Maybe he has something on the cat girl? How do you think he managed to get hold of Catwoman's secret? With his charisma and unique methods? Well, Wang Lu sneered, because of the beast taming school. He's a professional beast tamer of the beast taming school. Naturally, there will be an endless stream of spirit beasts being sent to him, so that he can use his means to get hold of their weakness and engrave an unforgettable pain in the spirit beast's body. Even if that spirit beast transformed in the future and succeeded in its immortal cultivation, it still couldn't get rid of his control. In the end, he's nothing more than a parasite inside the body of the beast taming school. In midair, Ling Yin clearly heard the sound of bones breaking. That was the sound of Asia's hands, which were behind his back, being crushed by a tremendous force. However, Wang Lu still did not give up. He continued to talk incessantly. If he had the self-awareness of being a parasite, I wouldn't say anything. However, the sad thing is, the more insignificant a person is, the easier it is for him to inflate his ego and be greedy for vanity. He was unwilling to be a middle-level King Pill waste, so he used the convenience of being a beast tamer to bully the spirit beast, obtaining the pleasure of being a cut above others. Over time, he deceived himself so much that he really thought that he was a great thing. 7th Madam, you've been traveling in 9 regions for so many years, so you should have seen a lot of sects that have such disciples. Either their talent is limited or their temperament is lacking. Their immortal cultivation is far inferior to their diligent and talented peers. However, not only they don't want to make progress, but they also abandon themselves to despair. They waste their time and energy in grandstanding. They sneak around, bully the weak and fear the strong. When their peers were diligently cultivating, they would either get entangled in senseless fights, or linger in a place of debauchery. When they are short of money, they would even steal other people's flying boat, and then shamelessly say that stealing a flying boat is better than stealing a country. So, what's the difference between the behavior of this beast tamer Asia? Several times he unexpectedly declared that he has absolutely no malice, and that harmony is precious, but essentially, it's just grandstanding. It's exactly the same as those people mentioned before. For this kind of people we usually call them dregs. As soon as this long speech came out, even Shao Qi was shocked. Through primordial spirit he said, "You're amazing. You can actually analyze it so thoroughly and conclusively just through a few words of other people. But, is he really just a dregs with a small heart and a grandstanding dregs?" Wang Lu said, "I don't care whether he is or not. In any case, that's what I said. Rest assured, at least there's one thing I'm not wrong about. That guy is very arrogant. He's quite proud of his own way of doing things. And the more a person is proud of something, the more it's his reverse scale. Therefore, as long as we recognize this point and belittle it, he will absolutely not be able to maintain his current demeanor. And as long as his mind is in chaos, it's inevitable that he will reveal his flaws." Shao Qi looked up. Sure enough, Asia's body had become extremely stiff. Although there was a smile on his face, it looked uglier than crying. "It's really unexpected," Shao Qi sighed sincerely. "Wang Wu, that bitch, has actually accepted a disciple with a high EQ like you." Wang Lu said, "How can I have a high EQ? It's just that as a professional adventurer, I've seen a lot of such villains. As long as I figure out the pattern, I can see the ending at a glance." While the two of them were talking, Asia couldn't help but move. "Well said. It's really hard to convince others to build a sense of superiority by bullying spirit beast." When Asia opened his mouth, his tone became calm and steady, and he didn't show any sign of anger. "So, in order to avoid being judged as a dregs, I have to build a sense of superiority by bullying fellow human cultivators. What a pity. I thought I could get along with you in peace, but it seems that I overestimated you." After saying that, Asia waved his hand, and then they heard a burst of beast roars coming from all around the valley. I'm a beast tamer and I'm proud of my profession and skills. If you want to prove that the path I choose is worthless, then please step on me with practical actions." While speaking, spirit beasts of different shapes and sizes appeared one after another around Wuxia. The rank of these spirit beasts was not high. The strongest one was only peak Shudan stage and most of them were middle or low-level Shudan stage. However, there were many of them. Moreover, since they were in the territory of the Beast Master School of the Grand Cloud Mountain, naturally, there was no shortage of array to help them. Not good. This array is like the 10,000 beasts array. Shao Qi narrowed his eyes and recognized Wuxia's method. The biggest effect of the 10,000 beasts array, which was composed of a huge number of spirit beasts, was that the spirit beasts could be divided into 10, and then 10 into hundreds, making the huge number of spirit beasts as vast as the sea. Combined with the 5 mountain broken veins array, it was even more complementary. No matter how great your ability was, it was easy to be trapped in the array by the endless spirit beasts. Whether Wuxia was a claptrap scum or not, now it seemed to be clear at a glance. If we really fight, our odds of winning are not high. Shao Qi calculated in his heart and calculated that his side would be fraught with grim possibilities. However, Wang Lu was neither hurried nor slow. "It doesn't matter, let's fight first." Alright, even a middle-level foundation establishment cultivator was so generous and sorrowful. What could a middle-level King Pill Sr. say? Then let's fight first. Shao Qi's spiritual treasure monk staff had been contaminated by the cat girl's blood essence, so it could not be used. However, she also had a lot of magical treasures. From her sleeve, she fished out an emerald green stick, which carried a strong smell of blood. Obviously, it had killed a lot of people. As soon as this magical treasure appeared, the many spirit dogs that gathered in midair instinctively retreated. Worthy to be Zen Master Guru, this equipment is really professional. As the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Lu immediately recognized that it was the dog-beating stick that was specially made to subdue dogs. However, in addition to the spirit dogs, there were more other kinds of spirit beasts. With a wave of Wuxia's hand, their figures immediately transformed. 1 became 10, 10 became 100, and then 10,000 beasts madly rushed down from the sky like a meteor shower. Do a good job in defense and slowly drag it out. Let's see what other cards he has. With that, Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan trembled, and the invincible defense sword defense propped up, protecting Lu Li and Quan Zhuhua within it. The next moment, ferocious spirit beasts continued to attack him. The first batch was mainly cat-type spirit beasts. Several leopards with thunder-like shining beards roared and slammed into Wang Lu. Their comprehensive strength was equivalent to low-level Shudan stage, and their impact force was equivalent to that of upper-level Shudan stage beasts. However, upon colliding with Wang Lu's non-Fei sword Qi, their roars came to an abrupt stop. Each and every one of them had their tendons broken and bones fractured, seriously injured on the spot. However, Wang Lu didn't even tremble, just as motionless as a mountain. After the leopards, there were several galloping one-horned giant green mantis beasts. These beasts were powerful enough to split open a mountain. Even those powerful peak Shudan stage cultivators of Beast Master School wouldn't dare to face them head-on. However, Wang Lu was still calm and collected. He silently operated his non-Fei sword art and met them head-on with his sword of Mount Kuan. He didn't even ask for help from Shao Qi, who was close at hand. These beasts were as big as a small building. Like a meteor, they smashed down from the sky. However, as if they hit an invisible solid barrier, half of their bodies were squeezed into mud. Except for the ground under Wang Lu's feet that suddenly sank by 1 meter, his posture didn't change at all. This defensive ability was simply against the heaven's will. However, how could the 10,000 beasts array that Wuxia was so proud of be easily defeated by a middle-level foundation establishment stage's sword defense? The two collisions just now were just the appetizer. The endless beast tide followed closely behind. The impact force was getting stronger and stronger. Moreover, regardless of the casualties, the spirit beasts would rather be smashed to pieces just to hit Wang Lu's sword defense. Before long, blood flowed like a river and corpses piled up like a mountain. In terms of quantity, the number of spirit beasts that died in front of Wang Lu had already exceeded their actual number. Although Wuxia had summoned many spirit beasts, there were only 30 to 40 of them. After all, spirit beasts with Shudan stage strength were not a dime a dozen for the Beast Master School division. However, at this time, the number of spirit beasts that died under Wang Lu's sword had already exceeded 50. This 10,000 beasts array really does have its knack. Wang Lu lightly said. His non-Fei sword defense was still unbreakable. However, when he spoke, the taste of blood in his mouth showed that he was not as relaxed as he looked. After all, he was just a middle-level foundation establishment stage. Facing a king pill level array, being able to persist until now was enough to crush many people's worldview. In midair, although Wuxia had a victorious smile on his face, his eyes still couldn't hide the shock. The main target of his 10,000 beast stampede was actually that Zen master guru. When he designed the trap, he designed the opposite party with the strength of a Yuaning stage Tiger King. However, at this time he couldn't even take down a foundation establishment stage cultivator. However, the longer the 10,000 beast stampede was activated, the stronger its power would be. If he couldn't use the correct method to break the array step by step, relying solely on brute force to contend against it, that would be a dead end. This vast sea of beasts was essentially the spirit mountain of the Grand Cloud Mountain. It was a large-scale combination of illusion and reality spell congealed from the spiritual energy along the feng shui line. Thus, it would never be able to kill them all. However, considering the mysterious origin of the opposite party, perhaps a long delay would bring more trouble. Wuxia was silent for a moment, and then his hand gesture changed. He decided to end this fight quickly. Brr. Along with a fierce whistling sound, the sky above the 5 mountains prison changed. 3 giant black turtles with golden shells and black clouds under their feet broke through the layer of clouds. Wrapped in flames, they smashed down. Metal, fire, thunder, and earth, the 4 elements combined into one. Its impact force had faintly broken through the peak Shudan stage, standing on the level of King Pill. Shaoqi's countenance changed. He immediately swept the emerald green dog beating stick, breaking the tendons and bones of the dozens of spirit beasts around him. Then, his eyes flashed with golden light, ready to use the power of Taoist Master King Pill to block this earth-shattering blow. However, just at this time, a gust of cold wind blew behind him. Shaoqi hastily turned around to block, barely managing to block this sneak attack. It was the cat girl Ling Yan. Although she had just been resurrected, the cat girl still had the strength of King Pill. Naturally, Wuxia wouldn't leave her idle. Shaoqi had too many ways to defeat the cat girl. However, being entangled by her, he had no time to take care of Wang Lu. Lu Li took half a step forward, wanting to use her brilliant sword heart to block the attack for Wang Lu. However, she was stopped by him. The next moment, Wang Lu's eyes turned cold and his lips tightly pursed. His primordial spirit, magical power and physical body, under the crazy operation of his non-phase immortal heart, suddenly erupted with power that far exceeded the middle-level foundation establishment. His non-phase sword defense also stirred up like never before. The mountain-like unchanging aura became ethereal and agile. The unbending heavy sword of Mount Kuan moved along with the sword intent, faintly emitting the sound of wind and water. Bang bang bang. After 3 collisions, the 3 black gold mystic turtle meteors made a sharp turn and flew in different directions. Then they collided with the mountain rocks and shattered into pieces. Wang Lu himself, like a spinning top, madly spun, digesting the absorbed impact. Non-phase sword art was not only straightforward, it could also be agile and wonderful. At this time, Wang Lu's non-phase sword art had displayed its softness to the extreme. However, when the rotation stopped, his face still flashed with an unnatural blush. Using foundation establishment to block the King Pill, how could there not be a price behind this miracle? After the 3 collisions, his non-phase immortal heart was almost broken. His primordial spirit, magical power and physical body dispersed, no longer able to condense, and his strength plummeted. Wang Lu, let's go. While Shaoqi was surprised that Wang Lu's non-phase sword art was better than his master's, he also urged him not to show off. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. Not to mention with Wang Lu's ability, he could condense his Shudan in less than 10 years. At that time, it would not be difficult for him to challenge Wuxia, who was at the middle level of the King Pill. Why should he fight against the opponent who had the advantage of time, place and people? As for whether he could go or not, with the Spirit Sword Heavenly Talisman, what was a mere 5 mountain broken veins? Go? If I go at this time, I'll fall into the opponent's trap. The other party set up this formation in order to force me to use the Heavenly Talisman to escape. Because if I go, it would take me a few days to come back, and by then the action to capture the immortal beast Moon Spirit would have already come to an end. Not to mention, those who still want to save face would not be able to immediately come back and pester me. Wang Lu tried to adjust his breath while explaining to Shaoqi. He knows very well that he can't really kill us, so as long as he forces us to leave, he would win. However, even with this kind of discounted victory, I won't give it to him. Shaoqi was speechless. She was too clear about the mentality of the genius disciples in the immortal cultivation world. Without experiencing setbacks, they wouldn't know how to take a step back. In the end, Wang Lu's path was too smooth and he couldn't turn around. If he really stumbled a few times, he would be able to learn the way of survival like his master. Forget it, this time I'll let him be willful for once. At worst, I'll give up this avatar and save his life. You won't give me the victory? In midair, Xia, who already had the victory in his grasp, could not help but shake his head and smile. In addition to the ability to talk, do you have any possibility of winning against me? While speaking, in order to strengthen his momentum, Xia turned over another card. A red, blood-like demonic wolf appeared beside him. That demonic wolf had already gone through the form transformation tribulation, and its cultivation base had reached the high level of King Pill. At this time, it was in the human form of a beast, integrating into the 10,000 beasts array. Its comprehensive strength was even better than the peak of King Pill Catgirl. And for Wang Lu and the others who had long been powerless, this was enough to crush everything. Seeing the appearance of this demonic wolf, Shaoqi's heart sank. She quickly turned to look at Wang Lu. If he still acted recklessly, perhaps he wouldn't even have the chance to launch the heavenly talisman. She must stop him. However, she saw that Wang Lu smiled again, and this time, it was a sincere and natural smile. Finally, you've turned over your last card. I've been waiting for this card for a long time. Then he paused and his smile faded. You shouldn't have any other cards in your hand, right? In that case, it's my turn to turn over my card. From his mustard seed bag, a bright silver light flashed. In everyone's astonishment, a silver flying boat with smooth lines appeared in the valley. The next moment, that silver flying boat, like lightning, crashed into a black gold tortoise that had just been reborn from the 10,000 beasts array. That black tortoise had just appeared and didn't even realize what happened before it was smashed into pieces. This time the destruction was very thorough. Xia felt a shock in his heart. Within the 10,000 beasts array, the figure of the black gold tortoise had unexpectedly disappeared forever. Wang Lu sneered. How could flesh and blood resist a chariot? Xia, say goodbye to your beloved pets. Chapter 192. How could flesh and blood resist a chariot? When the silver flying boat returned to Wang Lu and slowly landed in front of him, several astonished faces were reflected on its silver surface. In a difficult situation, it was not surprising that Wang Lu used his trump card to turn the tables in one fell swoop. Lu Li was even robbed of her position as the lead disciple by Wang Lu. But at this time he used such a trump card, which was really beyond many people's expectations. Isn't this an official car? Because she had entered the state of battle, Lu Li's mind was particularly clear, so she asked a very sober question. Isn't this an official car? Wang Lu scoffed at this. You're confusing me with that group of fat bureaucrats. You can't refuse the treatment that you deserve, otherwise, it will make things difficult for your subordinates. But the same leader's treatment, whether you simply pursue senseless extravagance or enjoy life while making practical arrangements, this is the difference in realm. Well, hurry up. Under the restriction of the Big Heart Demon Oath, this flying boat can't be controlled by me. Taking advantage of Shaoqi's dog-beating stick, Wang Lu called several people to enter the flying boat. At this time, the inside of the flying boat was no longer the original spacious and luxurious living space, but a machine room full of gears. The space was compact and dense. Rows of transmission pipes made of high-quality cloud silver were neatly arranged on the surrounding walls, which were flowing with dazzling brilliance. That was the liquefied immortal spirit energy, which was also the highest energy source to drive the flying boat. Wang Lu walked quickly, introducing and arranging the boat for them. This is the fighting form of the cloud wave boat. There's not much time, so I won't introduce it in detail. Now, Qinyang, go to the energy core on the second floor and continue to output magical power with the King Pill's cultivation base. If the magical power is not enough, directly take spirit stones from the reserve room. Xianair, you and I will go to the command room. Through the brilliant sword heart and the flying boat, we can control the overall situation. I know you haven't driven this thing, but just treat the flying boat as a large flying sword. As long as you listen to my command, this battle will be won. If there was anything that Lu Li was good at, obeying orders would definitely be one of them. Before long, several people were in their respective positions. Shaoqi stood in the middle of the energy room, each of his hands holding a set of cloud silver pipeline ports, urging the King Pill in his jade mansion to spin, sending out pure magical power from his hands to provide energy for the flying boat. Under the guidance of Wang Lu, Lu pressed both of her hands on a silver disc. A wave of wave-like brilliance flowed on the surface of the disc. Lu felt a shock in her heart, and then her primordial spirit was connected with the flying boat. The whole flying boat was like an extension of her body, and she could freely control it. For ordinary people, perhaps it would take some time for them to adapt to this kind of control. However, according to Wang Lu's words, Lu treated this smooth and slender flying boat as a kind of flying sword. The clear sword heart in her jade mansion swayed, and then she completely adapted to this flying boat. His primordial spirit resonated with the core of the flying boat, and the silver flying boat immediately shone with an even more dazzling light. "Alright, let's begin." Wang Lu, who stood behind Lu, patted her shoulder as encouragement. The silver flying boat entered its perfect state and began to move. In mid-air, Wuxia also took advantage of the few breaths of time to make his own response. He reached out to stop the eager red demonic wolf, and then operated the array diagram in his hand, making some adjustments to the position of the beast tied in the valley. The bloody scene of the silver flying boat smashing the black tortoise was too shocking. Wuxia knew that the other party had just revealed their trump card, so it was best not to confront it head-on with brute force. Thus he tried to delay the time. This kind of chariot-like magical tool basically had the problem of continuous combat. As long as he could drag it out long enough, the victory would still be in his hands. Red 3, blue 5, black 4. According to the algorithm in the array diagram, Wuxia soon completed the adjustment. In the valley of the 5 broken mountain veins, a group of beasts was boiling. From the mountain forest, the river, and the sky, all kinds of spirit beasts came out like a tide. It seemed like they were staking it all in one throw, coming out in full force. However, this was actually just an illusion. At this time, the level of the spirit beasts that came out were very low. Most of them haven't even condensed their inner core, which meant they were just foundation establishment or even lower-level trash. Their role was to cover the truly powerful spirit beasts, taking advantage of the chaos to launch a sneak attack. No matter how powerful that silver flying boat was, could it really withstand the 5 broken mountain veins and the 10,000 beasts array and kill them all? In the midst of apprehension, the first wave of confrontation began. In the valley, a silver lightning flashed across. With the energy supplied by the King Pill level Shaoqi, its speed was surprisingly a bit faster. And with Lu's brilliant sword heart driving it, it was greatly strengthened. In the blink of an eye, the flying boat had traversed thousands of meters. Were it not for Wuxia's timely adjustment of the array diagram, this sneak attack would have penetrated the mountain rock and severely damaged the 5 broken mountain veins array. However, Wuxia had the time to adjust the terrain, but he didn't have the time to direct the beast tide. Along the thousands of meters that the flying boat passed, along the way, countless spirit beasts were smashed to pieces. As the mountain wind blew, the valley seemed to be covered with a rain of blood. Damn, what the hell is this thing? As a cultivator of a high-rank sect, Wuxia had seen a lot of flying boats, but this kind of unreasonable rampant guy was really rare to come by. While clenching his teeth and calculating the loss just now, Wuxia made up his mind to increase the absorption of the feng shui line of the Grand Cloud Mountain. At the same time, both the 5 mountain broken veins great array and the 10,000 beasts array were strengthened, and more spirit beasts rushed out. He wants to crush everything with absolute quantity. In the energy room, Shaoqi sighed with emotion. With this flying boat of yours, it's indeed a lot more convenient. However, if we really continue to waste time with him, we can't possibly consume all the feng shui line's spiritual energy. Wang Lu used a copper pipe in the command room and said to Shaoqi on the 2nd floor, "I don't intend to waste time with him. My time is 10,000 times more precious than his. Just now it's just a test run. Now we're ready to officially break the array." "Break the array?" Wang Lu said, "Although my attainment in array setting is not high as the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, I have the theoretical knowledge to break the array. His 2 great arrays can be broken. However, breaking the 5 broken mountain veins array won't do us any good, so it's better to destroy his 10,000 beasts array. This array can use the spiritual energy to transform into spirit beasts. However, because the strength of the person who set up the array is not enough, there are many flaws in the array. Just now, when I used my non-phase sword to meet the enemy, I could feel that there are some special existences in the beast tide. As long as they are killed, they can cause irreparable damage. The black tortoise that we just killed is one of them." Shaoqi said, "Simply put, it's to kill a specific spirit beast. Is it that easy to kill?" Wang Lu said with a smile, "Of course it's easy to kill." Then he paused. Enemy found. 1 o'clock, go forward. Yes. The girl let out a clear shout. Although she had no idea what Wang Lu meant by 1 o'clock, the tacit understanding between the two of them allowed her to accurately understand Wang Lu's intention. She adjusted the direction of the flying boat and aimed at the panic-stricken thunder leopard in midair. That thunder leopard was known for its speed. Seeing the flying boat whistling toward it, it hastily launched its magical ability, trying to turn into lightning and fly away. However, unexpectedly, the speed of the flying boat was much faster than it thought. The silver light in its line of sight was actually just an afterimage. When it tried to activate its internal core, it found that the internal core in its chest had already been disconnected. The next moment, it saw that the part below its neck had been fragmented and turned into a rain of blood and flesh. At the same time, in the beast tide, dozens of thunder leopards silently disappeared, like a dream. Damn it! Wuxia clenched his fist and then madly adjusted the array. He was determined not to let the opposite party do whatever they wanted. In the beast tide, the core of the spirit beasts began to hide their tracks, deciding to temporarily avoid the spearhead. However, 3 o'clock, go forward. Bang! A crystal-clear crystal bird of prey was swept by the silver light and was smashed into pieces. 6 o'clock, go forward. The upper body of a dark ape that had just melted half of its body into the rock was directly crushed, leaving only a smooth cut on the ground. Then blood gushed out like a fountain. 8 o'clock, go forward. The silver light rushed into the river and penetrated a giant crab that was hiding at the bottom of the river. Crab row overflowed. Damn it, what the hell is going on here? Wuxia finally could not maintain his calm. He tightly grasped the array, completely unable to understand how the opposite party could so accurately find the vital point. Previously, he ridiculed Wang Lu and the others for only using brute force and completely not understanding the skill of breaking the array. However, now, the opposite party was actually breaking the 10,000 beasts array with the highest efficiency. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the array would be dragged to the brink of collapse. On that guy's flying boat there seems to be one of our kind. At this time, that red demonic wolf suddenly spoke in human language, reminding Wuxia. Wuxia suddenly sobered up and remembered that mottled dog. So that's how it is. I was thoughtless. Wuxia restored his calmness and immediately adjusted the array. Thus, in the mountain forest, a group of long-haired strange beasts began to howl and clamor. A strong and choking smell escaped from their pores and soon, the valley was filled with a thick fog. What the hell is this thing? I'm struck by lightning, woof. In the flying boat, the stupid dog cursed and then fled from the observation room. Wang Lu shook his head and laughed in spite of himself. Don't be rude to Qingchuan. It doesn't matter. They thought that I only have Quan Zhuhua as an observer, but they underestimated me too much. With that, he stretched his hand forward and placed it on the silver plate that controlled the flying boat. His primordial spirit and the flying boat were connected, and his line of sight suddenly became three-dimensional. In the valley, the turbulent flow of the surrounding spiritual energy, in Wang Lu's view, gradually showed its own pattern. Through the several kills just now, as well as his understanding of the entire array, Wang Lu has already touched the vein of the 10,000 Beasts Great Array. Later on, as long as he relied on his Void Spirit Root's exceptionally keen spiritual energy perception, he would be able to accurately grasp the vital point and continue to break the array. 7 o'clock direction, that wild boar with vines wrapped around its body. While speaking, Wang Lu communicated with Lu Li's primordial spirit, passing the target's position to her. Lu Li immediately understood and drove the flying boat to crash into it. However, this time the flying boat's trajectory was interrupted. A red demonic wolf blocked the front of the flying boat. At this time the flying boat was caught unprepared. Thus there was a violent collision. The demonic wolf was sent flying more than 10 meters away, its figure tumbled in a sorry state. However, its eyes carried a cruel and complacent smile. Because in the end the silver flying boat was blocked. Moreover, cracks have appeared on that sharp ram, and its whole body has turned black. The cloud wave boat's surface was covered with a layer of refined cloud silver, which was well known for its sturdiness. Coupled with its super high flying speed, even the black tortoise, which was famous for its defense, couldn't resist it. The demonic wolf was in the king pill stage, and it had experienced the transformation tribulation, so its body was far more powerful than the spirit beasts of the same level. However, when it was hit by that flying boat, it felt its internal organs were dislocated and its jade mansion was shaken. If it was hit several times in a row, its tendons and bones would break. However, It knew that the flying boat would never be hit a second time. At the moment of collision, it stained the flying boat's surface with its own blood. That was the extremely poisonous corrosive blood. Although the refined cloud silver was solid, its anti-corrosive ability was really mediocre. At this time the ram was only in shape, but the inside of it has long been rotten, so it was basically unusable. Not to mention that kind of rough collision, even if it flew at high speed it might fall off. After all, it was just a dead thing. Dealing with the beast tide that was also lacking in spirit change was fine, but in its place, then, just as the demonic wolf thought of this, it saw that the flying boat really retreated, no longer using its own body to collide. However, in the process of retreating, a turret slowly rose from the front of the flying boat. The next moment, while the demonic wolf was still in shock, the turret spewed out flames, and a huge thunderbolt fireball whizzed through the air and smashed into its face. In the midst of its pitiful scream, half of the demonic wolf's face was burned, and its arrogance was immediately dampened. At the same time, Wang Lu's voice sounded from the silver flying boat. We gave the enemy a ruthless blow. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.